We are looking for a sound check for Spanish interpreter Rosario. If you could unmute your mic and attempt speaking.
Hi, yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much. Testing. We are looking for a sound check for our Vietnamese interpreter. Kui, if you could please unmute your mic and attempt to speak.
Yes, this is Kui, Vietnamese interpreter. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Today is June 15th, and I want to go ahead and call the meeting of our budget hearing back to order. Let's see, with clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Supervisor Abakoga?
Here.
Supervisor Jung?
Here.
Supervisor Ellenberg?
I'm here.
Vice President Arenas?
Here.
President Lee?
Present as well. Good afternoon, everybody.
You have a quorum.
Okay, good. Would you like to go ahead and do the translation announcement, please, clerk?
If we could please have the interpreters translate the following into Spanish and then Vietnamese. If you are in chambers and require Spanish or Vietnamese interpretation, interpretation devices are available at the back of chambers. The deputy clerk can assist you with the setup. Translation is also available in Zoom using the interpretation button. Additionally, as a gentle reminder for public commenters, staff, and those on the dais, please speak clearly and directly into the microphone to improve the accuracy of translation.
Buenas tardes, si se encuentran dentro de la cámara, se encuentra el servicio de interpretación en vietnamita y español disponible. Pueden agarrar los receptores en la parte de atrás y un personal les va a ayudar con la configuración. Si están en Zoom, también se encuentra el servicio disponible en la barra inferior de Zoom en el icono de globo. Como comentario adicional para todas las personas que van a hacer comentarios al personal y a toda la gente en general, se les pide hablar de manera clara en el micrófono para tener una interpretación exacta. Muchas gracias.
Nếu quý vị ở trong hội trường và cần phiên dịch tiếng Việt hay tiếng Tây Ban Nha, chúng tôi có sẵn dụng cụ phiên dịch ở cuối phòng. Nhân viên trợ lý sẽ giúp quý vị để sử dụng. Để nghe phiên dịch qua Zoom, quý vị bấm vào nút Interpretation phiên dịch. Xin nhắc nhở thêm, những quý vị phát biểu tại hội trường, những nhân viên và những vị trên bục hãy nói chậm và rõ ràng vào micro để giúp phiên dịch được chính xác hơn. Xin cảm ơn.
Okay, all right. With all the translation announcement being done, we will next move to item 2, and I'm going to ask today, since we're doing budget, we're going to ask our budget director, Ezequiel Vega, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to item 3, which is that announcement regarding adjournment in honor of memory of Gary Andrew Graves. Gary Graves was a distinguished public servant who dedicated 32 years to the County of Santa Clara, serving in leadership roles including budget director, deputy county executive, assistant county executive, acting county executive, and ultimately the chief operating officer. Throughout his career, he oversaw the county's budget and internal operations and played a vital role in strengthening core safety net services for the community. He helped lead major initiatives such as the Public Safety Realignment Plan, the creation of the Reentry Resource Center, and the advancement of support housing efforts through strong partnerships and collaborations. Beyond his professional work, Gary was deeply committed to his family and was known as a mentor, a steady guide, and a person of exceptional integrity and transparency. And as president of the Board of Supervisors, I extend our condolences to his family, friends, and many, many county colleagues here with us today, in person and online. Gary's legacy lives on in the institutions he strengthened, the colleagues he supported, and the community he served with such unwavering dedication. And I believe, clerk, we have a video to play, yes?
We sure do. I'll ask TSS to put that up for us.
I'm very proud of the service that I've provided to Santa Clara County, and I can say that I'm proud to be a public servant here. All too often we read about the problems and mistakes that are made in our organization, and it's true that we're far from perfect, but what isn't recognized is the great work that goes on every day.
Gary was a true public servant in every wonderful sense of the word. He led with empathy, with a deep commitment to service to everyone in the community. He was an extraordinary shepherd of the county's financial health and well-being, and just laid such an incredible foundation for so many of the successes that we had both during his tenure and in the years that followed.
These were in Gary's office. These are Gary's budget books. From 1984 through 2016, Gary was the heart of each budget for our county organization. But the thing that really, I think, means the most to me about Gary was the fact that he would take the time, that he cared in investing in the next generation of leaders in this organization. He loved the county organization.
There are few people who can walk away from a career knowing that they didn't just touch a lot of lives, they didn't just touch hundreds of lives, they didn't just positively impact tens of thousands of lives, but that they positively impacted millions of lives.
The work that Gary just instilled was creativity and innovation. We are here at the San Jose Reentry Resource Center, and back in 2011, he brought in key stakeholders to envision what would be a multi-service center for folks that were coming out of jail and folks coming out of prison. And so with his leadership, we were able to create a multi-purpose center. Not only do we have one here in San Jose, but one in Gilroy, and that's because of Gary's leadership and his trust.
Santa Clara County, our community has one of the most effective supportive housing systems in the country, and that could not have happened without Gary Graves. And in those early days, it was just me, Jen Loving, a few others working on it, and Gary's leadership, his guidance, his, I would say even his sort of passion or recognition of the need in this area really paved the way for us to create a system that has helped tens of thousands of people.
I love Gary. I love Gary. I love a lot of things about him, but once he understood what the problem was, he would do whatever it took to fix it. And for someone in a high level of bureaucracy to have someone say, "I got this, I'm gonna fix it," I think it's so important. And he had that quality, and it was just one of my favorite people to get to work with.
Gary stands out as someone who just got the job done. He was very comfortable about the occasional difference of opinion, but he was also very clear about, here's how it is. And he'd tell you, here's how it is. And if you wanted someone who would tell it like it is, call him as you saw him, all those, great cliches, that was Gary. He was the guy who made sure you had the facts at hand. And that was, in my experience, invaluable, and I want to thank him for that.
What I've done is just put together a couple of slides here just to get us started, because pictures are always more fun to look at.
He never took himself too seriously, which was a wonderful leadership quality to have as well. He had a good sense of humor. We used to laugh sometimes when there'd be a board meeting and we could see him putting his head down, which meant, oh, here we go.
$150 million over 5 years. Right, but because the cost recurs,
I think people will remember most how balanced he was. I mean, he was a dad and he was a husband. He was a role model. People thought of him as a role model.
Gary was a unique person. He spent all of his life caring for people, particularly his family. Every time you'd talk to him about his family, his face would light up and he'd have a big smile. but he also cared for all of the county and all of the employees, particularly all the clients. He tended to all of the people he loved, just like he tends to his garden. And I don't really think he's gone. He's really just in another realm, caring for all of us again.
You were to ask us to come back with a very hard and fast plan. We can do that in time for the budget hearings. So I think it's really kind of open at this point, depending on what the board wants to do.
I would like it to be today.
Yeah, well, I have a sense, again, as we hear from the other supervisors, that
Today.
that we do, yeah, today that we do want that.
Gary would always end up meetings with a big laugh, and he had just something so special in him, and the kind heart that he had just made us all feel so special. I feel blessed, and I'm very thankful to him, because thanks to him, I am where I am, and I am who I am. I've learned so much from Gary. I will miss him very much.
Everybody smile. Okay.
Once again, thank you very much for the kind words and the support that all of you have shown. It's really been an honor to work for this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead, James.
Thank you, President Lee and members of the board. Thank you for recognizing and honoring Gary's service to our county organization. I just wanted to share a few words of my own. I was honored and privileged to work closely with Gary throughout his tenure as Chief Operating Officer. And I know we have many members of his family here, and Elaine and Andrew, and to the rest of the family, I just want to say thank you for sharing Gary with us. He's made an extraordinary difference that is a legacy that continues to live on in this county organization. Gary and I used to joke that he'd been working on the county budget since 1984, and that he'd been developing and structuring the county budget as long as I'd been alive. And Gary was someone who just brought a grounding presence in the organization, institutional knowledge and history, but a sense of calm, a sense of purpose, and a sense of deep commitment to this organization that really lay at the heart of everything that he did. And as a result, when there were changes, and there were so many ups and downs over the different years, many, many budget cycles, as reflected in the budget books that he so graciously gifted me when he retired, that are in my office, that reflect his thoughtfulness over time. And even after his retirement, his continued willingness to volunteer and continue to be a resource for OBA, a resource for leaders across the county organization in helping bring that institutional memory and that passion for our county organization year in and year out. As recently for me as a handful of months before he passed, where I would continue to get thoughts from him about how we tackle the challenges that we face today. Gary brought a humility to his work. He was very candid with me and with others about some of the mistakes that were made during prior budget downturns, and advice on what we should do to avoid repeating some of those mistakes and lessons learned. And he was very gracious with that as well. But the most significant thing for me was really his mentorship for me and for many other leaders in our county organization. The time and care and effort that he put into taking care of us as future leaders for the county. Skeptical at first when I first arrived on the 11th floor as a a very young, brand new executive in the county exec's office, but taking me and others under his wing to help us understand that history, understand that perspective, and to share whatever he could from his lens and perspective to help us be more successful and better and to help the county organization thrive in the long run. A deeply kind person, a warm person whose mark will continue to be felt throughout the leadership and throughout the structures that fund and shape our county organization for many, many decades to come. So thank you for sharing him with us. Thank you for all that he has contributed to our broader community. I'm personally deeply grateful, and I know that so many others, both who knew him and even those who did not, but are touched and shaped by his incredible legacy that he's left here at the county.
Thank you, James. Greta, you have something to share?
I do, and it's hard for me to talk about Gary without actually getting pretty choked up, which I know is true for a lot of folks in the audience today who had the great honor of being mentored by Gary and helping them prepare for leadership roles. You saw a number of those folks on the video that we put together, and Gary was really unique in that so many leaders just mentor folks who look like the younger versions of themselves. That was not how Gary approached mentorship and leadership in the county organization. Not only did he seek to build a cohort of leaders that reflected the diversity of our community through his mentorship, he also did that outside the county organization. And I see a number of leaders from the nonprofit sector here today who had the honor of working really closely with Gary, and he built a deep understanding of the county organization and its finances, and he really understood the interrelationship between the county organization and the other organizations in the community who further the work that we do. The other thing that I'll just share that Gary often shared with me, and I know he shared with so many of you, really related to his deep and abiding love and commitment to his family. He would often say to me when he would find me working really late during the time that my children were young, that I should go home and be with my kids, because that was a thing that was so near and dear to his heart, and something that he really encouraged all of us to really put ahead of other work, knowing that there were many more years ahead to continue doing the work that we did. And I think without his mentorship and guidance on that, I might not have had the fortitude to make it through some of those hardest years where my kids were really young. And I just think about Gary all the time, try to lead in the ways that he led this organization. It is such a privilege to be in the role that he served in for so many years. So I just want to thank his family for also being the inspiration to him in the work that he did, and also in inspiring him to help guide so many of us to really prioritize our own families while also serving the community that we love. So thank you.
Thank you much, Greta. Yes, please go ahead.
I don't know if, I think Elaine may wish to share some comments as well. I'm not sure, but didn't want to.
Yes, yeah.
You had an opportunity.
If Gary's family who is here today, please come forward. If you're welcome to share some remarks.
And I know we have our former county executive here and many others who worked so closely with Gary. And it's very fitting to honor him as part of the budget process. I think it's the most appropriate time in our county cycle for recognizing Gary and who he was.
Well, thank you for this honor today. I really appreciate it. My family really appreciates it too. And I will say that I know that Gary really loved this county, and he loved the people that worked at the county. As he talked about us, he talked about the county to me. So I would hear a lot of things that were going on, and he would discuss the projects and what they were trying to accomplish. And he really stayed true to the mission of the county. He always felt, that was what the most important thing was, to stay on task But one thing I'll say that we determined his love language was service. And so as a member of our family, he was always in service to us. But I can see that he was that way to all the people he cared about. It was more about serving you than what he could get for himself. And he was very selfless. And he did take on a lot in his life. He, worked with youth sports as well and was coaching a lot of teams as well as running budgets. And I used to just go, how does he do it? I know he would change clothes into coaching clothes while he's driving home. And I used to go, oh my God, that's so dangerous. But he, it's like he's always running late to, practices. But he was serving the youth of San Ramon too. And I saw a lot of those people at his service, and it was really wonderful and heartwarming. But I have to thank you too, because he actually never felt like it was work to him. When you talk about having your passion, he was passionate about the county, and he enjoyed it. And I would say the one reason he really retired was not that he wanted to give up the work, but the commute was really draining on him. And so he was like, oh, I can't. Every day he told me the commute was worse, every single day. I'm like, worse than yesterday? Yes, it was worse than yesterday. And so that was pre-pandemic. So anyway, he just was saying he had backaches, and he was like, the drive is just getting to me. But as far as the love of the work he did, and I think that's why when he was kind of called on for future projects and mentoring, he jumped in right away. He just loved to talk anything about your county. So I have to thank you for providing him a wonderful career, and he was very satisfied with it. He continued his love affair with the county. Liked to hear anything he could about what was going on. Liked his retiree lunches, and so anyway, I think it provided a wonderful life for him. So I have to thank you back. That's what I have to say. Do you want to say something?
I don't think I have much else to add. But thank you for making such a moving tribute to him in that video. I didn't know that there would be a video, and I turned to my wife and I was like, uh-oh, because I knew it was going to get me choked up. It's always really, I loved him so much. And it's always amazing to see how much of an impact he made on so many people's lives. So, yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, then going to the next item on the agenda today is item number 4, which is public comments. And this is an item that's reserved for members of the public to address the board on any items not on today's agenda for the 3 days of budget workshop. So any public who wish to speak on items which is not related to budget, that's not on the agenda today, should request to speak now. If you would like to speak about any of the budget items, please comment later, and it's on item 5, and I'll call you up again later, but not right now. Please do fill out a speaker card and return it to one of our clerks. And we'll call up to 30 names now, and then the remainder names will then be called at the end of the agenda. In-person speakers will be called first, followed by Zoom speakers, and no further requests to speak will be accepted under the continued public comment. Requests for the public on Zoom: as soon as the first speaker in chamber starts speaking, no more speakers will be taken. During public comment, to respect everyone's comments, we do not allow applause or boos. So in order to show your support, you could raise and shake your hands quietly. And I want to say thank you for your cooperation to keep our meeting moving orderly. And check with clerk, Rhonda. How many speakers cards do we have now on this item?
Thank you. I currently have 6 speakers in chambers, and it looks like 2 in holding on 3 on Zoom.
And these are all not related to budget, correct?
According to them, yes.
Okay, all right. Let's do 2 minutes each for now.
All right. With that, we are going to close the public speaker queue. I will call up the in-person speakers, and you may speak in any order. Just please let us know what your name is. Vireminan Gokason, and I'm sorry, I know I blew that name. Jenny Ramirez, Tracy Corner, Chuck Surface, Adam Cole, and Alan Kamara. Please come forward. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Tracy Corner. I am a rehab counselor with Central Wellness Benefits Center under BHSD. I have served the county for 12 years. I am requesting your immediate oversight regarding serious discrepancies in the BHSD clinic closure, layoff, and reorg process that has affected many senior workers. The data that was used to make decisions on where workers go.
I'm sorry, yeah, that item being layoff and all that is related to the budget. Am I correct, Tony? I just want to confirm, because if it is, you just have to wait a little bit.
That's correct. It should be considered together
Okay,
on that.
so
item.
sorry, would you mind waiting? When I call item 5, which will be right after this, you will be able to speak on this item. Sorry, thank you. Good afternoon.
Yeah. Good morning, Board and President Lee. I think this is okay for this item, not speaking specifically on the budget, but here to say
afternoon.
thank you to our County Executive's Office and the Board of Supervisors for the engagement with RNPA over the recent weeks. We know that RNPA and the county have been through a lot of difficult budgets in the past, and we've learned that the county and the union are always stronger when they partner and work together. RMPA is still losing positions, but we appreciate that you've worked with RMPA to minimize the impact of these cuts on our services and on our nurses. We appreciate the communication and the contact, and we look forward to continuing to partner over the coming years and more budget crises. Thank you.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Alan Kamara. First and foremost, I want to congratulate Supervisors Susan Ellenberg and Sylvia Arenas on your re-election. We want to thank you all for all you do. I don't think there are anybody in this county right now who's envious of your position. You're doing such a wonderful job for the county protecting our healthcare system. As a nurse myself, I see the work that you do. We just have an experience with one of our nurses who was critically sick and was treated at our neighboring hospital. We can tell the difference of care that Santa Clara County healthcare system provide for the community. And we want to thank you for that. And for this budget cycle, we know you'll be making difficult cuts, but you've done everything possible to protect our hospitals, our clinic, and our custody health, and so many other services while making the difficult decisions. Decisions that are brought on your shoulder by the federal government. And we hope the state will listen to some of your advocacy to make sure the decision they make on their budget will reflect and support our healthcare system here. And Mr. James Rollins, we want to thank you and your team for your collaboration to helping us navigate this difficult part on behalf of our nurses. We want to thank you all. Thank you so much.
So it looks like that concludes our in-person speakers. No one else has come forward. We'll start with our online speakers. Our next speaker is Ben Z. Ben, we've asked you to unmute.
Yes, hello. Good afternoon to all of you. I wanted to come before you and humbly beg for your help with my children. They're being sexually molested My son, he'd confirmed that my ex-wife was letting a man rape him beginning when he was 13. There'd been unnecessary bathing with the children. There was also sexual contact between two of the children. And this all caused my children great distress. They became anxious and withdrawn. They complained about not having friends anymore. And one of my kids, was telling me about being suicidal and taking drugs. And so I cannot get a screening for my children. There's never been an investigation of any kind. I contacted the CANC hotline. I contacted the district attorney. I've contacted Wendy Kinnear-Rausch. I've contacted Daniel Little. And because a conflict of interest exists in that a well-connected attorney wants the sexual abuse to continue, nobody will lift a finger to help my children. And so I come before you guys. I've come many times before, and just that you guys can please help me. My name is Ben Z, and Supervisor Lee has all my contact information if you need it. Please, I beg you, please help my children. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, and I just want to make a brief statement to confirm that the fact that California law does prohibit the disclosure of information related to investigation of suspected child abuse and neglect. As a result, we are not authorized by law to speak to the specifics of any particular case or results of any investigation of that case publicly. California law also requires that child welfare departments immediately cross-report physical and sexual abuse of children to law enforcement. And the public can be assured that our county takes all allegations of child abuse and neglect seriously and takes appropriate actions. Thank you. Clerk, to the next speaker.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sharon Luna. Sharon, we've asked you to unmute.
Good afternoon, supervisors. Congratulations, Supervisor Rennes. We do value you in the South County, and to Supervisor Ellenberg. I'm speaking regarding the data center developments and related infrastructure expansion in Santa Clara County. I believe you have heard what is going on in Gilroy. Questions need to be asked and should be answered in full transparency, similar to what you did with the Measure A. Some San Martin residents are needing full transparency if decisions are made, especially for San Martin, who has been vulnerable with water issues. For those that don't know, the ongoing perchloride issue that is still happening and will be happening for another 70 years. We are hoping that the Board of Supervisors will conduct attention to San Martin residents and to the South County overall on issues with data centers. Hold public meetings now instead of after, or schedule on your June 23rd agenda. Please respect residents need to know what is going on. However, if they don't show up, county supervisors were transparent. Supervisors, we are reaching out for a need for information and your stance. We have the Bay Area Quality Management coming out to a San Martin Town Hall to discuss the ban on gas water heaters. Because what we've heard at recent meetings is what the residents need to hear. Hope you can meet with San Martin residents up front and tell what you know and your intent. Thank you for your time, and sorry that Supervisor Rennes is not in the room, but I wanted to know that we truly are happy that she won the election. Thank you.
And that concludes, oh, I'm sorry, we do have a speaker, Patrick Ahrens. We've gone ahead and asked you to unmute.
Yes, Tony.
Is that for the next item, President Lee, or is that for non-agenda public comment?
That's for the budget items, yes. Okay. Correct. So we would, Keen, yeah, is this the last speaker actually right here?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Actually, this might actually work really well, since that would end the item 4, which is the public comment for non-agendized item. We are going to move to item 5, which is the updated information on the fiscal year 26-27 recommended budget from the county executive. Before we start, I have a very exciting news to report. We have actually our own assembly member, Patrick Ahrens, on the line to give an overview of what's going on with the budget that she was fighting hard for us in Sacramento. So I would like to welcome Assembly Member Ahrens. Please.
Thank you, President Lee, and hello, colleagues on the Board of Supervisors. I am just stepping out of our Budget Committee here in Sacramento to let you all know that we're going to be voting today in the legislature to pass our state budget to include protections of our very most vulnerable Californians and counties from the worst effects of the federal budget and the Trump administration. I'm really proud to have worked with so many of you and your amazing staff to ensure that our state budget is putting our county first and our people first, allocating the necessary funds for our counties to administer our social safety net services. We fought hard to ensure that the state budget rejects cost shifts to cuts to IHSS, as well as including $250 million to support our California public hospitals, including our own Santa Clara Valley Healthcare. The budget agreement is also including today $900 million for homelessness, housing, and assistance prevention HAP to our local governments to house the unhoused, and we're working towards a bond to build more affordable housing faster to bring down our costs. California's budget is really a rejection of the cruelest Trump cuts as we seek to use our one-time windfall of revenue to delay and prevent really the worst federal cuts to health and human services. I'm really thankful for our county leadership and staff who've worked to get this budget to a better place that protects as many vulnerable people as possible. I also want to thank county leaders for California's lawsuit to stop the illegal development of the ICE facility in our county. ICE has no place in our communities, and I am proud to have allocated funds to the Attorney General to stand strong against these illegal actions by the Donald Trump administration to expand their mass deportation scheme in our community. California and Santa Clara County will be successful in stopping these illegal ICE facilities in Gilroy because we are prepared to take a stand. I want to thank you all for your leadership on those two items, and I will be getting back to the Budget Committee. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the whole Board of Supervisors for your advocacy and holding me accountable to push more for this county to be as successful as they can, and with the help of our state. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Assembly Member Ahrens. Truly thankful for your hard work you're doing fighting for our budget and our funding, especially of our public hospital right here in Santa Clara County. So bravo to you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, and now that we're going to open up to item 5, which is public comments. But before I start, I want to also mention, since the items here forward from 5 to 31 are related to budget, Tony, could I just have one public comment for all the items?
Yes, you can do public comment for 5 through 31.
Okay, all right, if that's the case, let's see. For items 5 through 31, basically all the items relating to budget, for those of you who are patiently waiting for so long, this is the time to get your cards in and get your hands up on Zoom, and we'll go get your names called to discuss about our budget items. Yes, go ahead, Rhonda. How many cards do we have? I see more cards coming in the back, too.
So in chambers, I currently have 14 cards. Online, I currently have 5 hands raised.
There's some more coming, I think. Let's get in the back.
All right, I got 15 in person, 6 online, so 21 total.
21 total. Okay. Given so many items we are covering in this comment period, I want to give at least sufficient time. Let's do 2 minutes each for the speakers.
All right, with that, we are now closing the public speakers queue. I'm going to call forward a few people to speak. You may speak in any order. We're going to start with Tracy Corner, Chuck Surface, Jenny Ramirez, Jeremiah Gokson, Hui Tran, and Marjorie Siegel.
Yes, good afternoon. Go ahead. Oops, 1 second. Make sure the mic is working first.
It should be on. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Tracy Corner. I am a rehabilitation counselor with Central Wellness Benefit Center under BHSD, and I've been serving the county for 12 years. I am requesting your immediate oversight regarding serious discrepancies in the BHSD clinic closure, reorg, and layoff process that has affected many seniority workers. Seniority rules were not applied in this process consistently. The reorg data with the seniority list was incorrect, and less senior staff were placed or are going to the bid and bump process to retain their jobs that others have not been given that ability. Given the inconsistencies in this process, it's resulted in differential treatment based on discrimination on age and seniority, completely disregarding seniority basis. I have sent you all a more detailed document on Friday regarding the details. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Jeremiah Gakusan, LPD2. I have served this county with dedication for 22 years as licensed psychiatric technician. I've worked 12 years at Barbara Aaron Pavilion and 10 years at Central Wellness, and I hold the highest seniority in the entire agency. I want to bring to your attention significant discrepancies in the data used for the BHSD reorg. My seniority code was recorded incorrectly, making less senior staff appear more senior, and other inaccuracies directly affected placement decisions across clinic-facing closures. Seniority was not applied consistently, creating inequities for those of us with many years of service. Given the impact on senior employees, I am deeply concerned about the fairness and transparency of the process. I respectfully request your oversight to ensure accurate data, proper application of seniority, and non-discriminatory practices moving forward. Thank you very much.
Dear Board of Supervisors, I have worked for the county for 24 years, and I'm asking for your intervention along with my other colleagues regarding our meet and confer and seniority status. Central Wellness has been one of 3 clinics that are closing in behavioral health, and Central Wellness is the staff that has the most senior, ranging from 29 years to 26 years of service. And our positions are the ones that are proposed to be deleted. In the middle of the layoff, they are doing a reorganization of the department. And again, the reorg chart includes lesser RC staff that are named in the reorg, which again, the CWBC staff is not located anywhere on the reorg chart. When asked the reasoning why they, according to them, they're using seniority, their question is just basically saying that, or their response is basically saying that it's an internal deliberating process and no further transparency or clarity is being provided. Tomorrow is actually going to be the bidding for the RC positions that are available within the county that I think we should have access to. And our meet and confer has been scheduled for the 17th, which is the day after. So I ask if you can please, if you can, step in for us if you can, because I think this is something that is discriminatory and retaliatory. We were here about over a month ago in which we talked about how we close other clinics, and now they're keeping us behind to close the clinic but not be able to use our seniority, which I think is very unfair. I thank you for your time.
Could you state your name for the record, please?
I'm sorry, I thought I did. Jenny Ramirez.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm Chuck Surface. I'm with CSPL 988, and I am the Assistant Chief Steward at SEIU for BHSD. I'm here not only to speak for myself, but for my colleagues throughout BHSD, many of whom are upstairs bidding for positions today, for the three that just spoke before me, because they spoke to the irregularities and the outright mistakes that have been happening both with seniority lists and organizational charts. These are the bases for the decisions that have been made in terms of bumping, in terms of bidding, in terms of reorganization, and it just doesn't seem right that important information that not only affects my coworkers, but affects our communities that we serve, have not been considered decently. And I think the answer to that is transparency and collaboration. And by transparency, I mean a free exchange of ideas and information early and often, so we're not doing sort of this turkey nut cluster thing we're doing right now, where we're trying to fix things at the last minute while people are actually going through processes. And by collaboration, I mean working together at all levels, not just through you or through our management, but including frontline staff who understand our communities and understand impacts to basically face the future together, right? Because the dark energy that's metastasizing out of Washington, D.C. needs to be confronted by us all together, not like this, but like this, right? And we need to face it early, and we need to face it often, and we need to secure services not only for ourselves, but for our community at large. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Hui Tran. I'm Executive Director at Siren, but today I speak to the letter that was submitted to you all by the Rapid Response Network. Our ask is for the board to sustain the total funds that the board approved for immigration services, including the $1.3 million set aside in a reserve to respond to further federal government attacks, to make the total allocation $8 million. This ask is not just for the Rapid Response Network, but for all of the organizations that have received those funds and built the infrastructure that has created a tight-knit, powerful defense that is and has been ready for when the feds come. For many legal services partners in particular, revenue has been unstable as they faced attacks to their funding by the federal government, such as the HR 1 cuts and the draconian restrictions imposed on federal funds. The funding the county allocated since November 2024 has been put to use. The Rapid Response Network, as one of the beneficiaries, has grown to over 2,700 responders. In certain areas, our responder time has been reduced to less than 5 minutes. Our Rapid Response Network is now the strongest in the nation and has been a model for networks across the country. Speaking for Siren, funds from the county helped our legal team expand by 4 positions, 2 of whom are attorneys here in our San Jose office, and our legal team's overall output has doubled in that time frame. For Rapid Response and the orgs that provide vital immigration services, we are asking for sustained funding because there's still much work to do. We need to expand our capacity to do habeas petitions, which is one of the most effective tools to date to free those who have been unjustly detained. We need to continue building our capacity to do post-conviction relief in motions to reopen. We also need to stabilize the funding that has built a long-lasting community-centered immigration system that can withstand federal assaults. Santa Clara County has been a leader in terms of resourcing our work and standing up for our communities. We are facing threats on the horizon from the detention center being planned in Dublin and expanded ICE facilities in Gilroy. Congress last week just allocated another $70 billion to immigration enforcement on top of the $170 billion they allocated under HR 1. And these kind of threats require local resources and even more vital. Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and call forward a few more people. Kara Kazantzis, Kelly Batson, Edith Sona, Sherry Martinez, and Randall Pham. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Marjorie Siegel, and I live in District 1. I'm a volunteer legal observer with the Rapid Response Network. And I urge this board to allocate the full $1.3 million mentioned by Hui from the Federal Response Reserve to immigration services so that it can sustain the critical work of protecting our immigrant community, 40% plus of our population. With this money, the total allocation would be $8 million, and with the threats of proposed ICE facilities in Gilroy and Dublin, this isn't the time to drop the ball to protect our most vulnerable residents. Any reductions from last year's budget mean that crucial services will have to be stopped or reduced, and losing this funding could result in losing positions such as lawyers and support staff that are vital to the work that's needed. As a legal observer this morning, I watched somebody get shoved into a van in handcuffs at the ICE check-in on Blossom Hill. He thought he was showing up for a routine check-in. And fortunately, I was able to document with my colleagues and help the Rapid Response Network connect him with legal support. That work is so important. Legal services providers, such as those who are part of the Rapid Response Network, have used these funds allocated by the county to strengthen the rapid response and serve Santa Clara County families. Let's meet this moment with the leadership Santa Clara County is known for and allocate the full $8 million for immigration services from the Federal Response Reserve. And thank you so much for your time.
Good afternoon, President Lee and Supervisors. I'm Kira Kazantzis, CEO of the Silicon Valley Council of Nonprofits. As you make your final budget decisions for fiscal year 27, I want to acknowledge just how difficult this moment is for all of us. Across our nonprofit community, organizations are preparing for contract reductions, service cuts, and layoffs. Dedicated nonprofit staff who have spent years building trusted relationships with community members may lose their jobs. Programs that families rely upon may be reduced or disappear. At the same time, we know county departments and county employees are facing similar challenges. The impacts of HR 1 are being felt throughout our community and across the network of partners that together make up Santa Clara County's safety net. We also want to acknowledge the hard work of county administration throughout this process. We've seen genuine efforts to protect critical services, consider the needs of nonprofit partners, county employees, and residents, and apply a racial equity lens to budget analysis and decision-making. We appreciate the willingness of county leaders to engage with nonprofit organizations and community members through conversations, town halls, and other forums as these recommendations were developed. At the same time, this budget is not the end of the conversation. The impacts of these decisions will unfold over the coming months and years, and we will learn more about what's working, where unintended consequences emerge, and what adjustments may be needed at mid-year and beyond. Given the likelihood of continued fiscal challenges, we encourage the county to remain committed to ongoing analysis, transparency, and engagement with nonprofit providers, labor partners, community leaders, and residents. We continue to believe it's important whenever possible to preserve service infrastructure and avoid eliminating entire service lines. As these reductions move from spreadsheets into real-world implementation, it's important to understand not only what's being cut, but how those cuts affect community access, outcomes, and costs. We also look forward to partnering with county admin on the important opportunity to streamline and improve contracting practices. In a constrained environment, reducing administrative burdens can help both the county and nonprofit partners. Thank you for the decisions that you are making tonight.
Good afternoon, Board. I am Edith Sona, Program Manager for the Alexian CFCS SUTS Outpatient Program. I am here this afternoon for the third time. This is a process I must go through to advocate for the displaced Alexian CFCS SUTS clients. The current BHSD recommendation pulls our SUTS clinicians providing on-site care to SUTS clients and places them at Sunnyvale Clinic, Gender Affirming Care Clinic, and Behavioral Health Pavilion. The current transition plan is that these clinicians will be treating these SUTS clients at their new assignments. These programs are specialty mental health programs. These programs are not drug medical certified, and they are not alcohol and drug certified by DHCS. This plan leaves our SUTS clients stranded and sends a strong message to our clients that they do not matter and they do not care. This plan reinforces the core beliefs of these clients that they are not valued by society. This plan is same as eliminating substance use treatment services for students, adolescents, and young adults. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Cherie Martinez, and I work with youth and substance use treatment at the SUTS CFCS program at Alexian Clinic. I ask that you consider what this budget proposal means for the youth we serve every day. The SUT CFCS program serves some of the county's most vulnerable populations. These are not simple cases. These are young people who have often been failed by the systems that were created to support them. What's most concerning in this proposal is that there was no clear plan where our clients will go after the program closes. As other clinics have been discussed, we have now learned that these clients will not be accepted at these clinics. This leaves an ethical concern of what is called client abandonment. Our clients are already fighting against tremendous barriers. They should not have to fight against a behavioral health system that is removing the very services helping them succeed. Approximately 75% of my clients have told me, I don't want to continue services if I can't have you as my clinician. For many of these youth, their clinicians may be one of the first adults that they have ever felt safe with. These youth have spent their lives being told what the statistics predict of them. Our program exists to help them write their story differently. Closing these services risks reinforcing the very outcomes we are working so hard to prevent. At the end of the day, this is about more than a program. It's about whether we continue to show up for our youth at a time when they need us the most. Because I can tell you they notice who shows up for them and they notice who doesn't. I urge you to please consider not only the budget impact of this decision, but the human impact as well, and to please consider the impact of the Alexian Clinic and possibly keeping us open. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Board Supervisor. My name is Randall Pham. I'm here wearing many hats. I want to thank Supervisor Susan Ellenberg for appointing me on the Health Commission. So I'm also here as a Health Commission, but today I'm speaking to you as a practicing physician in the community. I practiced for over 30 years, and my office is currently on the O'Connor Hospital campus. I'm here because many of my colleagues and patients are very concerned about the merging of Santa Clara Family Health Plan and Valley Health Plan. My colleagues voiced their concern because they report that many of their patients were not able to see them, and that many of the patients told them that they got message and telephone call that they had to see other physicians. Some of the patients are here today, but more importantly, I'm very concerned about the lack of access to continuity of care. And if the patient cannot see the patients whom they have been seeing for 30 years, the problem would be that we're not able to provide adequate care to the patient. And without adequate care, certainly we will have problems with budget increase because of the lack of health care. And for that, I truly and respectfully ask the Board of Supervisors to consider, review, and provide decisions so that we can avoid the lack of care. Thank you.
I'll call forward the final in-person speakers, Than Huynh, Man Trong, Alyssa Koff-Ginsburg, Kelly Batson, Sherry Martinez, and George Jaramillo. And you may speak in any order.
Kính chào quý vị. Tôi tên là Thiện Huỳnh, 75 tuổi, ở San Francisco, 30 năm trước.
Good afternoon, Board.
We actually do have our own Vietnamese translator, and the translation will be done after he speaks. So thank you, though. Go ahead. Just do that. Just go finish it all in Vietnamese is fine. Yeah, thank you.
Lúc ở San Francisco thì tôi vào cái Kaiser Permanent, thì tôi đi khám đó hầu như rất là ít bác sĩ Việt Nam. Thì cho nên tôi rất là khó khăn trong vấn đề sức khỏe của tôi. Vào khoảng 4 năm trước thì tôi về sống tại San Jose sau khi tôi retire. Thì tôi rất là vui khi về San Jose vì tôi gặp được nhiều bác sĩ Việt Nam. Tôi có thể đi và nói tiếng Việt Nam với tôi rất là tốt đẹp. Tôi rất là an tâm trong vấn đề chăm sóc sức khỏe cho tôi. Nhưng cách đây hình như năm ngoái tôi biết là quận hạt đã mua một cái bệnh viện ở Gideon Medical Center thì quý vị thay đổi cái cách điều hành, từ đó dẫn tới việc là chúng tôi, những bệnh nhân Việt Nam không còn có cơ hội chọn lựa bác sĩ cho chính chúng tôi. Chúng tôi rất là lo lắng, không những tôi mà những người già của tôi cũng vậy, rất là lo lắng khi họ không được quyền chọn lựa một vị bác sĩ mà họ đã tin tưởng, nói tiếng Việt, văn hóa với họ, chăm sóc đàng hoàng. Bây giờ họ phải đi một bác sĩ khác. Tôi không nói đó là giỏi hay dở, nhưng mà làm cho chúng tôi cảm thấy bất an khi gặp một bác sĩ chúng tôi không biết. Vì thế, chúng tôi tha thiết mong quần hạt hãy quan tâm tới cái vấn đề tinh thần của chúng tôi, sự chọn lựa của chúng tôi, mà trở lại cái policy mà cho phép người bệnh nhân lớn tuổi như chúng tôi được phép chọn lựa những bác sĩ mà chúng tôi biết, mà chúng tôi tin tưởng. Xin cảm ơn.
Hello, supervisors. My name is Tom Hing. I'm 75 years old. I used to go to San Francisco. I used to go to Kaiser in San Francisco, and I was able to see the doctors in Vietnam, the Vietnamese doctor there. But then 4 years ago, I moved because I retired, and I moved to San Jose. At that time, I was able to see Vietnamese doctor. They were very concerned, and they took very good care of us. But then last year, there was a change. Now I understand the county has bought the Meridian Medical Center, and so because of that, I have no choice of choosing any doctor that I want. I'm very concerned for myself and other elderlies because we want to be able to see the Vietnamese doctors because we have the same language, the same culture, and that will help us a lot in our care. Please, if you can assist us to have a policy that will help us to choose the doctors that we would like to go to. Thank you very much for your concern.
Thank you. Come on.
Good afternoon. Xin chào quý vị. Tôi tên là Men Trương. Tôi ở trong quận hạt Santa Clara. Tôi đến đây để trình bày một cái suy nghĩ của tôi về vấn đề sức khỏe. Từ lâu nay tôi vẫn chọn bác sĩ gia đình để theo dõi sức khỏe của tôi trong nhiều năm. Và đến nay thì hơn 30 năm chúng tôi sống ở địa hạt Santa Clara và được bác sĩ mà tôi chọn theo dõi sức khỏe của tôi. Họ biết tôi về văn hóa, về phong cách, về cách suy nghĩ của tôi trong vấn đề sức khỏe. Nay chúng tôi được biết là chúng tôi không được làm điều đó nữa, là không được chọn bác sĩ. Thì tôi nghĩ điều đó rất là khó khăn cho chúng tôi trong vấn đề văn hóa xã hội. Nó không giúp cho chúng tôi để cải thiện lại cái y tế mà tôi có nguyện vọng theo đuổi. Một lần nữa tôi rất là mong quý vị theo dõi đến cho chúng tôi được phép được quyền chọn những bác sĩ mà chúng tôi yêu thích và chúng tôi tin tưởng vào họ. Một lần nữa xin chúc tất cả quý vị sức khỏe.
My name is Minh Truong. I'm living in Santa Clara County. And regarding my health, I was able to choose my family doctor for many years. For the last 30 years, I've been living in this county and I have been able to choose my own doctor. It's very important for me to be able to choose a Vietnamese doctor because of the culture difference, because of the language, and also about all the other choices that we would like to see that a doctor can provide for us. But now we understand now it's not the case anymore. It's going to be very difficult for us, and we would like to ask the board to help us so that we can continue to be able to have our own doctor to provide for our care. And I also hope that I will be able to continue to see the same doctor that I have been seeing in the past. Thank you very much.
Association. Federal and state funding cuts, along with the loss of fund balances, forced very difficult reductions across areas of the behavioral health service system this year. BHCA members responded with creative program redesigns to soften the impact and we're gathering information on the effects on clients and staff, which we plan to share with you. FY27 brings a fundamentally restructured rate system, with rates decreased for the first time in many years. This creates a complex reality for BHCA members. Providers have real concerns about fiscal sustainability, but are moving forward, making major staffing and business model adjustments to attempt to make it work. Providers' analysis indicates the system only works under best-case conditions, stable referrals, no unexpected staff leaves, and normal turnover, making it inherently fragile. I want to thank the leadership at BHSD and in the CEO's office for approaching this collaboratively with us. BHCA and BHSD agree to closely monitor metrics and adjust based on what's working, what's not, and emerging needs. Second, I want to express support for the remarks of my colleague Clara Kazantzis from SVCN. The uncharted territory we enter calls for the collaborative, data-centered approach that she describes across the county. And finally, we appreciate the board's commitment to behavioral health, your leadership, as we all navigate this very uncertain time period together. Thank you.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Jorge Jaramillo, and I'm a leader with the Silicon Valley Allied for the Common Good. We are currently represent 25 diverse institutions and 30,000 Santa Clara County residents, and we are growing. The impact of HR1 community healthcare is our top concern. Our institutions have launched civic academies and house meetings listening to the healthcare stories of almost 200 residents across the backgrounds for 6 weeks. Many families have had their covered California premiums go up more than $700 a month. Some already lost their Medi-Cal, and many are already experiencing long wait times for psychiatric care and other specialties. We are deeply concerned about the current cuts, especially around the behavioral health. We recognize your immense challenge in addressing the $750 million deficit. However, future years will be much harder. We are here and committed to partnering with you to find proactive long-term healthcare solutions for all our residents. Thank you for your time and dedication.
Good afternoon, respected supervisors, and especially Mr. President, Supervisor Lee. My name is Tam Nguyen. I've been in this county for 46 years. And when I was working as the program director at Vivo Foundation, where we serve tens of thousands of senior people, and especially new immigrants who need help to immigrate, to assimilate into the American life. I myself is a care provider for my own sister, who is 84 years old. She lives on 20th Street, and her doctor's on 13th Street. So she's been comfortably living there and receiving care for 20 years. As a member of the Asian community, many people rely on the trusted and friendly medical providers. I am very concerned of the county monopoly in the management of the county health care provider. I understand and I personally realize deeply that you are very concerned, compassionate, and careful community. That's given me the hope to come today to share with you all my thought. So there's two issues with this. The patients may now move away from the community doctors that they have no interest. And secondly, many of my friends and friendly doctors who understand their language and culture, the county system cannot replicate this level of trust and give it the peace of mind. Therefore, I ask the county to provide a balanced leadership and adequate referral to local community, ethics, healthcare providers, and I wish you good health and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to our Zoom speakers. One moment, I need to compare the list because I have a lot more Zoom speakers than originally. Staff, if I can ask you to lower the hands of those who did not have their hands raised. All right, we're going to start with Lone Den. We've asked you to unmute.
Good afternoon, County Board of Supervisors, President Lee. My name is Luan Din. I am a political refugee and an immigrant in 1975, and I'm also a naturalized citizen. I am a volunteer with PACT, currently in San Jose at St. Maria Goretti, where we provide pastoral care and preparedness. We ask the board to continue funding the stream of $8 million to legal service providers that includes the Rapid Response Network requests. Number two, we call on our board to save our public defender post-conviction unit from shutting down. And we ask our county to move towards a universal legal representation model to assure access and removal defense to our county residents facing deportation proceedings. This is important to our congregation because families are sacred, the nucleus of society. Please keep all hardworking people at work and families together at home, not in detention centers. I believe we, as residents of Santa Clara County, must all come together to protect vulnerable lives, especially the immigrant community, at this critical time. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Andrew Siegler. Andrew, we've asked you to unmute.
Good afternoon, supervisors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Andrew Siegler. I'm a resident of District 2, a member of Showing Up for Racial Justice Santa Clara County, and a trained legal observer with the Rapid Response Network. I urge you to allocate the full $8 million for immigrant support services, including activating the $1.3 million that is currently earmarked for reserves in case of an emergency. As you well know, these are emergent times. Not putting the full $8 million up front would cause a reduction of crucial services at a time where the services are most needed. Even the mayor of San Jose realized after community outpouring that now is not the time to hold money for some hypothetical worse emergency and proposed for San Jose releasing their full share of support. Don't get outdone by that mealy-mouthed, milquetoast, mediocre white male Matt Mahan. Do the right thing, please. Release the full $8 million for immigrant support services. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Will Hernandez. Will, we've asked you to unmute.
My name is Will Hernandez. I'm a therapist with Community Solutions and per diem staff for the Crisis Stabilization Unit at Momentum. I'm here as a member of the SEIU 521 in order to serve as an advocate for my clients, both at the Crisis Center and at our Housing Continuum program at Community Solutions, which is unfortunately sunsetting June 30th. The lack of transparency, county job restructuring, and community-based organization consolidation of programs is setting a precedent of mass-scale uncertainty and negative impact in our community. Community-based organizations like Community Solutions and all nonprofits in our county are not impermeable to the huge political shifts in funding and economic insecurity at the macro level and within our everyday services and interactions. Due to our client high acuity, it is almost a certainty that even small service changes have cascading effects. These effects can be seen in increased 5150 holds, client ER visits, loss of continuity of care, client attrition, eviction, substance use relapses, job loss, and a higher need for monetary resources like GA and SSI. From a funding standpoint, it will be more costly than simply offering more supportive services or retaining the ones that we have. We understand the impact of the HR1 budget and understand the programs are going to be cut or restructured as cost-saving measures, but we ask the Behavioral Health Department have increased transparency, a more timely in communicating changes, and think with direct impact in mind and not just the funding associated. We are requesting that the county delay these cuts to the best of their abilities and are more attentive to the restructuring of programs and the large-scale implications. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Victor Ojakian. We've asked you to unmute. Victor, we're unable to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We sure can.
Oh, gee, you have to click a lot of buttons. I'll start again. I'm Victor Ojakian. I think you know why I'm here. Speak on behalf of keeping the suicide prevention program. We're partway there, folks. We just need to go a little more, and we'll have it kept intact, pretty much serving the way it does now. As some of you know, I've started a public awareness campaign around this, something you don't typically do in suicide prevention. And what we found out is people in this county care about this program. They understand what's going on. And I think you need to follow their lead and keep it intact. I'm gonna send you all the latest data report. We issued it a couple of days ago, and I'm gonna use it as a yardstick going forward for what this county should be doing in terms of suicide prevention in the county. I will say I've sent you material on older adults, the public awareness campaign that you requested of us. And I've asked the people in the California Office of Suicide Prevention what they do around older adults, and they gave me a blank stare. So we need to keep this going. I'm concerned because the public health department has done very little to prepare for a transition. We've taken the initiation in some meetings that are coming up in the next few days to give them an idea of what's going on. So that all those concerns equal, are people safer in this county by doing what's being proposed? No, they're not. They're more at risk, and you need to not let that happen. Most people understand that. So thank you for your time, and please do the right thing.
And that concludes our speakers who had their hands raised prior to us closing the public speaker queue.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close the public comment period regarding item 5 through 31 for today now. Next, we will go ahead and turn over. What we plan to do is we'll deal with items 5 through 9 first. And then we'll deal with item 10 to 31st later. In the meantime, I will go ahead and pass this along to our county executive, James Williams, and also of course, our county budget director for an overview on our budget.
Thank you, President Lee. Good afternoon, members of the board. I'll ask our county budget director to pull up the slides. Just have a very brief overview this afternoon, and then we'll, of course, be happy to answer questions as we move through specific items. But did want to just remind members of the public about the context within which we are working in bringing forward a very challenging budget for our county organization, and given the critical nature of the safety net services that we provide our community. Next slide, please. Notwithstanding these challenges, the recommended budget, including all of the revised recommendations that are in front of the board for the budget hearing, is structurally balanced, and we have taken extraordinary efforts to the greatest degree possible to preserve critical safety net services and programs consistent with the board's policy priorities, given a very challenging fiscal environment. Next slide, please. And I did want to just remind folks and highlight a few things, because we focus, and it's very natural that we do so, but we focus in a cuts budget like this on the things that are being lost. And those losses are painful, and they're difficult, and they're challenging, especially when we all agree that there's incredible community need. But what we don't see as plainly are the many things that we are able to continue to do, as well as the many ways in which we are attempting to continue to pivot to meet critical needs in our community. And I'll highlight just a couple things listed on this slide. For example, the extraordinary efforts across our county organization to preserve critical services across Santa Clara Valley Healthcare. The fact that we're opening our behavioral health services pavilion this upcoming fiscal year, and which facility is fully staffed and funded in the proposed budget. The fact that we're continuing to open and to fund the supportive housing services associated with 2016 Measure A supportive housing projects that are coming online. And the fact that we've continued to preserve numerous critical investments in programs that have been proven to demonstrate success and that represent, in many cases, national best practices. Next slide, please. We have done this work in the context of an extraordinarily difficult fiscal landscape. The board is well aware of the cuts posed by H.R. 1, but as you'll see when I remind us of the 5-year forecast, these cuts will continue to hit us in waves. And there's now talk of a potential third reconciliation bill in Congress that would supposedly target waste, fraud, and abuse, as they term it, in Medicare and Medicaid, that could potentially wreak additional havoc on critical healthcare funding streams. But what we do know now is that we have to continue to do everything we can to close the monumental gap left by H.R. 1. And to do so in a broader context where our operational costs at baseline are outpacing revenue growth at baseline, in part due to some of the very same pressures that each of us face and our families face, thanks to the broader macroeconomic policies and inflation being caused by the same federal administration that brought us H.R. 1. Next slide, please. But for this recommended budget, we have had to deal with what was initially a $787 million gap. Next slide, please. And as we shared at the budget workshop, we have taken a multifaceted approach to closing that gap. Measure A, of course, being a pivotal piece of that strategy. But the difficult decisions posed in the budget before the board closes a critical piece of that remaining gap for this upcoming fiscal year. Next slide, please. We put forward a 3-part strategy to deal with these federal cuts. One piece was Measure A, and huge gratitude to the voters again in our community for stepping up and delivering on that in a timely way. The changes that were already taken at mid-year and that continue to be implemented, especially across our health care delivery system. And then the state piece, which I'll talk about a little more in a second. Next slide, please. But first, looking at 2025 Measure A, we have recommended the full allocation of those dollars to preserve those same critical services that were talked about and that directly relate to the cuts we're facing from H.R. 1. And we've set forth a pretty clear delineation of where and how those funds will be utilized. Next slide, please. Numerous revenue, programmatic, and structural changes across our health system and elsewhere in the county organization to try to realize revenues, cost savings, and other efficiencies in the most strategic way possible in recognition of the fact that the gap that we face fiscally is not a short-term recession, but is a new normal in terms of federal investment in critical safety net services. Next slide, please. And just a reminder that this recommended budget does rely to the tune of $95 million in ongoing revenue-based solutions. And I just want to take a moment to thank the staff who are working hard to deliver on these 200+ initiatives, each of which takes work. The money doesn't just materialize. These require operational changes and programmatic changes that in some cases are very difficult to realize, but we're counting on them, and we're counting on them to ensure that we can continue to deliver the services our community needs. Next slide, please. Now, the third piece of our strategy has to do with the state. And the news here is complex. There's incredible uncertainty about whether and how the state will come through on doing its part to ensure that health care for all Californians is preserved and protected, and that there's an effective and strategic response. Our gratitude goes to our delegation and others who've been advocating to reject cuts to county critical services, and, as we heard from the Assembly member earlier, to put some actual money to support public hospital systems in California. And their advocacy has made a difference, will make a difference, and will continue to be absolutely vital as we look forward. We are going to have a new governor come next calendar year, and we're going to need ongoing partnership from the state, because the gaps that we are facing are ones that are in operating dollars, meaning that they are used to fund staff and contract service delivery year over year, and those gaps can only be closed with recurring revenue sources year over year. And so a lot of what is happening at this particular moment in the state conversation, and we're certainly, again, very grateful for the legislative budget proposal and hope that it makes good headway in negotiations with the governor. But what we're seeing so far on that front isn't sufficient to address the gap that we face, and isn't sufficient to avoid catastrophic impacts to hospitals, particularly public hospital systems across the state of California. And so what that means is that we will need to continue our advocacy. Many important decisions are proposed to be deferred into the fall or next year, and we will have to stay laser focused on this prong of our efforts, lest we be forced to deal with the remaining gaps imposed by H.R. 1 through service reductions here at the county level. Next slide, please. So we've taken this multi-pronged approach. We've tried to preserve critical programs to the greatest extent possible. Next slide, please. Incorporate the feedback that's been received at budget workshops from board members, as well as other issues that have surfaced over the last several weeks. And we acknowledge that based on what does happen at the state level and what continues to happen at the federal level, we'll need to continue to be nimble and flexible as an organization to do what we can to mitigate those impacts on those most in need in our community. Next slide, please. One facet of that is the reality that a significant portion of these budgetary solutions does fall on our own workforce. We have taken numerous steps to try to minimize those impacts, but again, they're real, and they're certainly real if you happen to be one of the individuals who is affected directly. I am pleased to share that since the publication of the recommended budget, the number of filled position impacts has been reduced by 1/3, and that's largely consistent with what I shared with the board at that time, which is that with each successive week, as positions do open up, we are able to move things around to try to minimize those filled position impacts, and we have done so to a very significant extent. And that of those filled position impacts that remain, 75% are same classification transfers. So we've taken many, many steps to try to minimize what that means for the workforce. I recognize fully that, again, if you're an affected individual, that's not satisfying, but know that we have taken many steps to do what we can as an organization. Next slide, please. We also have continued to put together as many resources as we can to support transitions. There are a number of bumping impacts that occur in filled positions sometimes across departments, and we want to make sure that even though we have to follow very rigid rules around what happens in those cases, that we try to help support staff in being successful in whatever new role they might end up in, and have been working with our departments to try to make that the case to the greatest extent possible. Next slide, please. But I do have to be very candid about the bad news that looms in front of us. Our 5-year forecast is not good. It's terrible. It shows very significant deficits year over year as we see continued implementation of H.R. 1. And I just want to call out one thing on this slide. This is assuming no change in the broader economy. So if we have a recession or other significant impact, that would make these numbers significantly worse. So we have to be forthright about that and what that means as we look ahead. We need to steel ourselves for the impacts that will likely bring, especially unless we can obtain the partnership we so desperately need from the state itself. Next slide, please. And this is just a reminder that the uncertainty that we face is from every direction you can think of. It's hard when you're confronted with the types of services we're talking about, the families and how they're impacted and affected by the services that are at the core of what the county does, to then also steer through all of this uncertainty at the same time. I will say this, I have incredible faith in our county organization. We have very thoughtful leadership from this Board of Supervisors. We have a long legacy. We heard a little bit about that at the top of the budget hearing. We have a long legacy embodied by Gary, but many, many others, of stewardship across our county organization. And we've been through some pretty transformational changes in the past. And I am very confident that with thoughtfulness and a deep commitment to values and a clear focus on effectuating our strategy, I am very confident we will navigate all of this uncertainty together and continue to be in a position to deliver service to those most in need in our community. And that as we join together as a county community, and I mean that not just in terms of within our broad county organization, across departments and across our staff, I absolutely mean that, but also the many others in Santa Clara County more broadly who care so deeply about this work and this mission, that we will continue to set the example for the state and the nation in how we actually respond through the service provision that we provide and through the implementation of the strategies that we have to all of the crises being foisted upon us by the federal administration and by everything else that's going on more broadly in the world around us. Next slide, please. And with that, I'll turn things over to Ezekiel.
So as indicated by the county executive, this budget cycle has been challenging, but in the middle of all of that, the budget as presented today, including the revised recommendations that are part of the agenda for today and the items that will be presented also tomorrow and that will be later considered for adoption on Thursday, presents a balanced budget. So the information typically for these meetings is organized in 4 major categories: new information, any revised recommendations, also corrections of any potential errors and omissions, and agree to findings of the management auditor, and you'll see a specific information related to that in the next item on the agenda. But what this means, since the recommended budget was presented, is that there were various changes in these categories as outlined in the table in front of you that resulted in ongoing and one-time changes. But overall, when you look at the bottom line in this table, the budget is balanced. Now going into further details specific to some of these categories, now in the new information section of the table that you saw before, some of the major items that contributed to some of these changes include the addition of approximately $5.6 million in one-time cost for payments to SEIU members related to an agreement that was approved by the Board of Supervisors at the end of April. Also, we added $1.6 million in one-time revenue and realignment, and other changes that you see here on bullet 3 of this slide. And at the bottom line is that overall ongoing net savings of $3.1 million were achieved, and one-time cost of $1.6 million in this category of new information since the publication of the recommended budget. In addition to that category of new information, we also have the revised county recommendations that are presented and also continue to maintain the budget in balance. The overall county recommendations presented result in a net ongoing cost of approximately $2.9 million and net one-time cost of $2.3 million. For non-general fund operations, we also had some revised recommendations that result in ongoing costs of $1.6 million and net one-time savings of $2.8 million, and added 46.4 FTEs. Most of those positions were added in the library system, and a lot of those changes that occur in the library system are directly associated with the budget that was approved by the JPA for the library system, and we are just aligning the budget that was approved by the JPA with the county budget system at this point. In addition, we had some corrections and additions in the general fund as outlined in the first bullet of this slide. And also we have concurrence with the management auditor amounting to approximately $3.9 million in budgetary savings and $10 million in other funds. And also it's worth mentioning that we are also adding approximately $990,000 to the contingency reserve to be in compliance with the Board of Supervisors policy. And again, just to reemphasize the point that after all these changes have been incorporated as part of the budget, the general fund continues to be in balance as required by law. So even with all of that and some of the challenges that were mentioned earlier in the presentation, we're going to continue to have significant challenges to be able to balance the budget in the future. One of the most significant revenue sources for the general fund is property taxes. And property taxes are projected to be lower than have been historically in place. And you actually saw some of that in the prior fiscal year, for fiscal year 25-26, when we were adopting the budget, where the projections were higher and the actuals came a little lower than the projections. For this fiscal year, we are also being conservative due to the changes that we have seen. And we anticipate that the target of 4.5% that is being projected in the general fund is going to be met for fiscal year 26-27. In addition to that, we're going to see continuous cost pressures that will impact the budget. Some of those more significant cost pressures that we will see are associated with contributions to pension cost, also costs for salaries and benefits, and also the ongoing growing cost for the provision of retiree health and health benefits in aggregate for the overall organization as a whole. So re-emphasizing that we're projecting a potential 500 million gap for next fiscal year. The budget presented as of today is balanced. So any changes that occur or that are made throughout the next couple of days will require adjustments in the budget to be able to continue to make to remain in balance within the budget. So, for example, if we have a specific program or a specific positions that are restored, that will mean that we will have to make a corresponding change in the budget to be able to maintain the budget within that balance. In addition to that, it is also worth noting that in the middle of all this risk, the county recognizes that it is a good financial management practice to establish a rainy day fund. So the Board of Supervisors actually recognized that and established that earlier in the fiscal year. We have not funded that yet, but we have a policy in place so that when budget cycles are better in the future, we will have the ability to be able to fund that rainy day fund. Plus, as mentioned before, we have a contingency reserve that we use for unforeseen circumstances, and we also have a cash reserve that was improved during the fiscal year so that we are better able to respond to the uncertainty that has been highlighted throughout the presentation. So overall, the recommended budget is balanced. A structural deficit is projected into the next fiscal year, but we have taken the appropriate steps to be able to be well-positioned and continue to advocate at the state level to be able to address some of the challenges that we foresee we're going to see into the next fiscal year. So the last item that I will leave with you and recommendation is that we continue to be fiscally prudent and be cautious as we move forward into the next fiscal year. That concludes the presentation, and we're open for any questions.
Thank you very much, Ezekiel, and thank you for that, James. Since we're considering 5 through 9 together, 7 is actually the recommendations relating to the county's auditor review. I'm going to ask our auditor to please come up from Harvey Rose. Good afternoon, Cheryl.
Good afternoon. I'm Cheryl Solov with the Management Audit Division. I have with me also Anna, who is a senior manager with our office as well, who can speak to some of these issues. In general, we had recommendations for $34.3 million in potential savings in the general fund and about $12 million in potential savings in non-general fund resources for a total of about $46.3 million, of which, as near as we can tell, about $14.8 million was accepted by the administration. I'm not sure what additional information you would like, or if you have questions about particular recommendations.
Yeah, we'll open up later on to our colleagues for any questions you have. Actually, I think this might be a good time. If any of my colleagues have any questions for Cheryl regarding the auditor's report? No? Okay. You've done such a great job. We all read the report thoroughly, and we don't have any further questions. Good job.
Okay.
Thank you so much. That was easy. I like it. Item 8 is to receive report regarding the request for information, R5, regarding recommended budget. And then on 9, I believe we have the adopted resolution to approve the recommended budget of the county and special districts on entities for 26-27. So since we're doing all 5 to 9 together, I just want to make sure the progress there. Yeah, James, you were going to say something?
Oh, no, I was just going to suggest that to the extent board members have questions related to the items under item 8, that they just be discussed when the relevant department is discussed. That way we're not having parallel conversations on the same set of items. But otherwise, yes, Supervisor, I think the board can just vote on 5 through 9 together.
Sure. Yes, Supervisor Ellenberg.
I'm happy to move approval of items 5 through 9.
Moved. Second Vice President. All right, any further discussion for that now? Okay, seeing none. We can go take the vote first.
All right, on motion of Supervisor Ellenberg, seconded by Vice President Arenas, Supervisor Abakoga.
Aye.
Supervisor Jung.
Yes.
Supervisor Ellenberg.
Yes.
Vice President Arenas.
Yes.
President Lee.
Aye as well.
Motion carries 5-0.
Good. Now that we are moving to item 10, as I said earlier, we're dealing with item 10 to 31 together to consider the recommended budgets and revised recommendation of various county departments under the purview of our FGOC and also our HXC committees. Of items 10 to 31, I'll ask which items my colleagues would like to pull, and then we'll proceed to only pull the items for comments and questions. You have a question?
Yes, point of information.
Please, go ahead, please.
We just adopted the recommended budget, so all of these items fall, no?
No.
No.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the way the budget hearing process works, at the top of the hearing, the board basically accepts the recommended budget, and then the rest of the items are all any adjustments or changes, and then on I guess it'll be Thursday, there'll be the approval of the adopted
Okay.
budget with all of those incorporated.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, all right. So back to my first question is I'd like to ask my colleagues on item 10 through 31, which of those items would you like to pull? If you have any items you want to pull, please turn your lights on. Yes, Vice President?
I'd like to pull 28 and 29, which is the Behavioral Health Services Department item. They have two items.
Right, 28 and 29. Okay, all right.
And then item number 15, which is the Immigration-Related Services Funding allocation.
15 for immigration-related funding. Anything else? Okay, that's it. All right, so as Ellenberg, anything? Nope. All right, Supervisor Yong.
We have the behavioral health services, right?
We pulled, yes, we
Okay.
pulled 28, which is the Behavioral Health Services Department, and 29, which is the Behavioral Health Services Department as well.
Thank you.
All right. And Supervisor Abe-Kuga, do you have any items you would like to pull? Okay, none there. Looking at that, looks like those are my same. Okay, I do have a couple more. I'd like to ask to pull item 26, which is the Santa Clara Valley Healthcare Budget. And also 31, which is the Valley Health Plan Budget. Okay. So, correct, 31. So all the items, let me go through all the items over again. Item 15 for immigrant-related funding, item 26, item 28, item 29, and item 31. So in that case, for the items that we are not hearing individually, may I receive a motion to approve these items?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Just to be clear, so the motion here is to refer the items for final approval, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, on motion of Vice President Arenas, seconded by Supervisor Abe-Kuga. Supervisor Abe-Kuga.
Aye.
Supervisor Jung.
Yes.
Supervisor Ellenberg.
Yes.
Vice President Arenas.
Yes.
President Lee.
Aye as well.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. So now we'll proceed to item 15 of the Office of the County Executive Budget relating to immigrant-related funding. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, so item 15 is the County Executive's Office budget, and we're happy to just go straight to questions.
Please, Vice President.
Okay, wonderful. I'm sorry, we started with item
15, which is
Item
the
15, so I think this was related to, you said a question regarding immigration funding?
Yes, yes. So I know that there has been, we recognize what is being placed in our community through the processing center in Gilroy, in my district, in Dublin, the detention center, and then in Concord, the court, the immigration court, related court. And so we understand that there's going to be all of our jurisdictions around the Bay Area coming to a court in Concord. And that will require for us to have some kind of coordination and partnership with those municipalities to ensure that our folks who are coming from the Bay Area actually receive what they need and that they're not getting duplicate information or misinformation, and that they can refer back to us in case that they think that this is the place to go to for information. So I just wanted to ensure that that was happening.
If I may, through the chair,
Good afternoon,
President Lee, Vice President Arenas, honorable supervisors, David Campos, Deputy County Executive, and I'm here with Dr. Ana Lilia Garcia, who oversees the Division of Equity and Social Justice. Vice President Arenas, we are, as you know, through the regional convening and conversation, not just with the 9-county Bay Area, with actually 12 counties, because we also are speaking with San Benito, Monterey, and Santa Cruz. And what we're trying to do is how we can collectively ensure that in every case, or as many cases as possible, that there is legal representation. And you know, earlier, some folks from the community noted that we do have 1.2 million in reserve. And the reason why we believe it's important for us to hold on to that is so that we can better assess and ascertain what the need is. And a particular concern right now is that we don't have legal representation for every person that is in ICE detention. And what we know from people that have studied this issue is that 1 out of 4 individuals that are detained by ICE are eligible for habeas corpus relief, and that is a process where an individual who is detained, in the Latin term, you know, you have to bring the body to the court and explain why the individual is detained. And we believe that that's one area where the region can benefit from a more coordinated approach. And one of the things that we're actually doing as part of our final allocation of contracts is to dedicate some funding for a regional habeas corpus strategy. We're actually proposing to allocate an additional 200,000 because we were able to find additional resources of 400K, and we're allocating half of that to plant the seed for a regional habeas strategy. And what we have found in the San Francisco court, for example, is that in just about every time that there has been legal representation by someone detained by ICE, the federal courts have actually released that person. Mm-hmm. And so we hope that other counties can follow the lead of Santa Clara County so that you do have a situation where in the Bay Area, most of the people that are detained by ICE can benefit from habeas corpus representation. And by the way, what happened in San Francisco is that the ICE was essentially detaining people as they were showing up for previously scheduled court hearings. Mm-hmm. No expectation that they would be detained or deported. Mm-hmm. But once the individuals started getting legal representation, and it turned out that the courts were releasing them, ICE actually stopped doing that. And so we believe that this strategy is really the right strategy. And you know, we're very careful to make sure that it's not just Santa Clara, that we actually include other jurisdictions. But I think the reason why we wanted to hold on to that money that is in reserve is because we're not really sure what the next steps are at the federal level. There was something in the New York Times today that talked about how the White House is now actually exploring getting rid of the writ of habeas corpus, which of course would be unprecedented. Only 4 times in the history of our country has that right been taken away. And in 3 of those cases, Congress acted to do that. And the only time that it happened unilaterally by the president was President Lincoln during the Civil War. So depending on what happens, we need to be ready. But that's the approach that we're taking and making sure that we are coordinating with the other counties. And I will turn it to Dr. Garcia if she wants to add anything, or our county executive.
Yes,
Go-
James.
Go ahead, Ana Lilia, and then I'll share a couple thoughts of my own.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon. Ana Lilia Garcia. I am the Director of the Division of Equity and Social Justice and the Chief Equity Officer. To your question, Vice President Arenas, regarding coordination regionally to be most responsive and supportive to our immigrant families, as Concord is now the only courthouse for our residents. There is a center that has been established in Concord. It's called the SAFE Center, and we are actively coordinating with that center as they are providing support, navigation support for families that are afraid, for families that may face deportation or detention at their check-in. So as a region, we are working very closely with the SAFE Center to explore pathways of alignment, coordination, and support for all of our families that are going to be traveling to Concord with the unknown if they are going to be returning home, ensuring that those families have the resources that they need. But you are right, that is going to require coordination by the region, specifically from our county, with the SAFE Center in Concord to ensure that families know what resources are readily available to them.
Yes, James, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple of thoughts. David just referred to this New York Times piece that just came out with some exclusive information about the fact that the Trump White House was actively debating suspending the writ of habeas corpus. And I just want to put an exclamation point to what he just shared about that, because it is an extraordinary curtailment of due process and civil liberties that has only happened in the context of war, and even then, very, very limited fashion, and with tremendous controversy, because it is one of the most fundamental and essential checks on unlawful detention by the government. What we have tried to do with the budget is, notwithstanding the cuts that we're facing, not only preserve 100% of our current funding commitment, but continue to set aside some flexible funding to be able to meet what might come. And that New York Times exclusive just highlights the uncertainties that we're facing in this area, and the fact that we need to be poised to respond rapidly. And I'm very proud to work under the leadership of a board of supervisors and part of a county organization that for decades now, in fact going even before the first Trump administration, has shown a willingness to be a national leader in being responsive on this issue and to stand up for this community in recognition of how defining that is for what makes Santa Clara County special. So we are unwavering in that commitment on the part of county administration. I know the board is unwavering in that commitment, and we will continue to need to be nimble and flexible depending on whatever new or in some cases old, but similarly harmful ideas might pop up coming at us at the federal level. I will add one other thing, which is with the latest reconciliation bill, those federal agencies are now fully funded for the duration of Trump's term, which means they don't need to go through the regular appropriation process in Congress. And that's concerning too, because it means that there's no opportunities for Congress to impose any safeguards or guardrails through the appropriations process on what happens with that funding. And that's something that should be very alarming to all Americans. We've never seen before the reconciliation process used to bypass annual appropriations. It is a novel application of reconciliation, but it is one that really evades critical checks and balances that are foundational. Right there in Article 1 of the Constitution, the House of Representatives is where spending bills must originate, and it's because our founders were very clear-eyed that one of the most powerful powers that the federal government has is the power of the purse. And they wanted specifically to vest that power in the House of Representatives because it was the most responsive body, being elected every 2 years, so that it was a body that actually is one where the American people could rein things in or change direction. And by putting in a reconciliation process that funds these agencies through the duration of the presidential administration, it's a direct effort to bypass that public accountability and to evade what they fear is going to be a bad election result in November. And that's something that regardless of party or regardless of particular policy position on this topic is something that every American, candidly, should be very concerned about, because that is not the structure of the Constitution at all.
If I may add that along the lines of what the county executive noted, because of that funding, we actually have found an additional $400,000 that we're allocating for this purpose, and half of that is going to the habeas work that we noted, and then the other half is going to the Rapid Response Network to bring them to the full funding that had been given to them last year, because we do think that they need to have those resources to be ready in case things change rapidly in DC.
Thank you. I was going to ask you about that as well, and I appreciate that allotment for Rapid Response Network. We've seen how effective and just the need that is there is just tremendous. I'm sure that if we had $5 more million, they would make the best use of it. It's not something that I would be concerned. They're definitely not an agency I would be concerned that would just be spending money for spending. They would find ways to really support our immigrant community. So thank you for that. One of the other items I wanted to bring up is, I know for my community, we are at the southern tip of this county, and to get to Concord is going to be a trek, right? So, I mean, it's a trek just to come to the Children's Advocacy Center, and that's a trauma and abuse incident, right? And so this is also a crisis, but it's a different kind of a crisis. So I'm wondering if there is any appropriation for transportation, seeing if there's, either public or Ubers or just public. I'm not advocating for Uber, just any ride sharing or any public transportation, any modality that would facilitate, coming back and forth, especially for those folks who may be at risk of staying and losing their vehicle and their family not having that vehicle. Just the whole cycle that could happen.
If I may, through the chair, I think the idea of this reserve is that would give us an opportunity to look at any gaps, including something like this. So we're happy to look into that, Vice President Arenas, and we're happy to work with you, your office, and the community. And that's one thing that I will note to folks is that while that funding is in reserve, per the direction of the county executive, and assuming the board approves it, there is flexibility, and we will work closely with these community-based organizations to identify gaps, and happy to look further into that, and happy to get any information that you have or any CBO has.
Yeah, perfect. I appreciate that. I just wanted to bring that up since Concord it's a little bit of it's a little bit of a ride. So thank you so much for all the work that you've been doing. Dr. Garcia, I know that you have been intimately participating in all of these convenings. Your leadership, of course, David, has allowed for us to go where we are heading now. And unfortunately, we're going to have to just be responsive. Every time they change the techniques, the tactics, the strategies, we're going to be just as responsive. So I'm very happy to hear that you are building in some flexibility within your system to also be responsive. So thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you.
David, the issue you just mentioned regarding habeas corpus, I still remember as a high school student, that term didn't really make sense to me because it turns out it's not English, it's Latin. Right. And what it really means, that when you hear these so-called legal mumbo jumbo, people get confused and turn off their ears. But I'm trying to see if I could explain this in the most... Oh, by the way, there was a really bad explanation of habeas corpus on the YouTube you want to watch by the former Attorney General that was asked, and it was actually quite comical what it is not. What it really is that if the government arrested you in the middle of the night or wherever, grab you, and put you in some detention center or jail, whatever they want to put you, the Constitution requires this government, whoever body is that arrested you, to make sure that you get to have a couple of things. A, attorney. B, the fact that you actually go see somebody which is outside the branch, the executive branch, in this case would be the judicial branch, a judge, right, to review why the heck are you being detained. I think that's the easiest way for me to explain what habeas corpus is. And that's why it's really an important thing, because we know in many countries in the world, which does not have the freedom that we share in this country, this happens. It happens in places in South America, in Central America, in the Middle East, and whatnot. But this is not that country, and this is such a basic right. And if you tell me that the New York Times is reporting that our president of the United States is actually thinking about getting rid of that right, I think people should be furious, if they understand what that is.
Well, it literally means bring the body to court and tell us why you're detaining that individual. And in this case, what the New York Times is saying is that they're considering for the first time having a general policy that gives the President of the United States the unilateral authority to suspend the writ of habeas corpus. The 4 times that it's been suspended, Congress has acted, and even when President Lincoln did it as president, it was because Congress was in recess. So this would be truly unprecedented, and even within the Trump White House, someone basically said, not clear that we can go down this path. But as we know, that the line keeps moving, and the driving force behind this is the Deputy White House Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, who views executive power as being unlimited, obviously. And so that's the fear, and that's why we need to be ready, and that's why we're working so closely to make sure that we have the attorneys ready to go. And the project, and I think some of you heard this at the regional convening, the project that we are funding or looking to fund would have lawyers on call ready to file a petition. And there have been examples with these folks already where you have a van that is on its way to the airport to fly people out that has been stopped because the writ was granted by the court and the person gets pulled out. But the image that we think of is the fact that, yes, one person was safe, but there were many other people in that van who did not have that representation, and that's what this does.
Exactly. Thank you, David. Supervisor Young.
Thank you.
Yes.
David, Dr. Garcia, I thank you for your work in this area, and I do appreciate the approach that has been taken, that's been recommended, offered today, to have flexibility with some of the funding. And I really want to say that for the record, that to our advocates and to our community partners who stand in solidarity with us, that all of this funding, the full $8 million is being allocated. It's just that there's a portion of it that's being left flexible for exactly these type of situations as the insidious nature of this federal administration comes up with new ways to mess with people, right, that we're able to pivot quickly in that. So for that, I want to offer my appreciation and also just state that for the record, that there's nothing, there's no, like, the 8 million is there. It's,
We have every intention of using the resources allocated by the board. It's just a question for part of it, what is the most effective use? And we believe that that requires ongoing conversations and consideration of what the next steps are by the White House, because their strategy keeps changing. But we will continue to check with community as we decide the best way to spend that money.
thank you for that, Dave. I think the ability to be able to pivot to emerging issues as they happen in real time is probably the most important fundamental portion of our strategy right now, to be able to respond. This is in the same vein as flexibility. I mentioned, there was some conversation about this at CSFC about the legal services contract provision and the importance for us to be able to give as much flexibility to our contracted legal services providers, because what we planned for initially at the beginning of this has definitely changed on the legal landscape, and a different type of legal representation is now necessary, as you demonstrated with the habeas corpus project, which I understand is they have capacity to file 1 petition per day right now with the capacity they have. So I know at the Belong in the Bay, there was a lot of conversation about how do we expand that kind of capacity, whether through volunteer attorneys, through law students, being able to be on standby to write these petitions as the need arises. So want to reemphasize our ability to be able to augment the legal services contracts to meet the moment as we need to, in addition to this reserve that you've set aside to offer that additional layer of flexibility. And to the Concord courthouse, immigration courthouse, something that was just very profound that was mentioned by our host supervisors in Concord during the Belong in the Bay was that all of our residents, all of our constituents will be going to the immigration courthouse, the federal courthouse in Concord, whether you're, no matter which of the 9 Bay Area counties you're going to be at, our residents are going there. And I want to emphasize the level of flexibility we need there to meet that moment. It doesn't have to just be deployment of funds and resources to help out, to support the Safe Center, or to have services there, or navigation there, or a phone number there. But considering the deployment of staff, whether it be SSA staff, whether it be some members of the Rapid Response Network, or in partnership with other Rapid Response Networks from that area, that there's actual people, warm handoffs, a warm body, a real conversation during this time of crisis. And there's going to be a reality where people don't even know that our service is there until they show up at the courthouse and there's a person there saying, hey, like the Safe Center's right across the street or right down the street, or being able to have the Rapid Response Network connect with clients and constituents saying that, we have, I don't know, whether it be transportation support to get up there, child care support to help but the support that's going to be necessary for people who are going to be driving hours away without a guarantee that they get to come back.
Thank you very much for your question, Supervisor. I just want to reassure you and the board that as we are having conversations with all of our vendors, that we are staying nimble, that we do stay flexible, vigilant, as we don't know what is on the horizon, and ready for that our vendors are ready to pivot as needed. Regarding the habeas network, what's really critical to the success of the habeas network, you mentioned, is also the partnership with the Rapid Response Network. Mm-hmm. That is a critical juncture for the habeas network as they receive communication of families that have been detained across the region. So we are working very closely across the region to ensure that we are ready for the unknown, prepared, and building those relationships and partnerships, as you noted, with the Safe Center, as the Concord Courthouse is the only courthouse for our families, and they not only just receive a flyer, but there's actually a warm hand of a person on the other side to support the families. So that requires us here in our county to support and our vendors by ensuring that they have what they need, that they stay nimble and flexible to be most responsive, but that we build those relationships regionally. So on the other side, in Concord, there are people for connection, for support, for navigation of our families who are facing the unknown.
The only other thing that I would add through the chair is that in terms of legal representation, it may be, depending on the number of people that are detained and are being deported, that we may not have enough immigration attorneys to handle the number of cases. And we as a region have seen that before, and I will use the example of the political asylum context, where you had a number of nonprofits that were doing that work and had lawyers assigned to those cases, but that at some point we had to turn to the private bar to identify lawyers to do pro bono work. And I think that's something that we are also thinking about, that we may need to get the assistance from the private bar. I know that when I was in private practice, did a couple of political asylum cases. It may be that some of these law firms, need to ask some of their younger lawyers to do habeas cases. But I think that we have to think about what the need is, and I think that sometimes the cases, as we have seen in Minnesota, as we have seen in LA, the number of people, it's so large that we may need to do that. But we're thinking ahead of that and are having conversations with the private bar as well.
Yeah, thank you for that, David. I know that Asian Law Alliance did a 3-day training for volunteer attorneys and removal defense. And it wasn't to train attorneys with no legal immigration experience to go to court and argue the next day. It was for them to be able to do like the law and motion stuff and all of the prep work and, the grunt work, so to speak, right? To allow for the attorneys to represent their clients and some of the more significant substantive points in the case. That training was completely booked out. Not even a supervisor was allowed to cut the line off of the wait list. So that's a good thing. But it's as you're saying, you're exploring how we can partner with the private bar. There's already one demonstration of attorneys signing up for that training immediately and taking part in it and having a wait list. But I checked with the Asian Law Alliance, and there hasn't been another round of funding that would allow them to launch another training.
Well,
not saying you should do that, but in the name of nimbleness and being flexible, that's something that on the horizon to consider.
We're definitely looking at that, Supervisor, and folks are aware that a member of our board is interested in that training, and I know that there are a couple of other lawyers, and I certainly am interested in doing that, so we'll keep you posted.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I can't emphasize enough the realities of what's going to happen at the Federal Immigration Courthouse in Concord, right? Our residents will be there. We should have, whatever that looks like in the future, but having Santa Clara County employees, staff out there ready to receive them, ready to connect them with services. And I know that let me just say this is not the way we do things, but let me just say it for the record that it's not going to be a wait and see situation how this plays out. It's going to be let's plan around, let's figure out, and something, this is Dr. Garcia, that I know how you operate through my experiences working with you in multiple settings where it's how do we envision what that interaction is going to look like? What are they going to need when they get there? And to plan ahead for that. Yeah, thank you.
And we welcome any insight from any board member, along the lines that Vice President Arenas was talking about transportation. If there's any other issue that comes up that you think we should be mindful of, maybe it's different for your district than it is in other parts of the county, we're open to that and, invite conversations. And, again, thank you to the leadership of this board for, giving us the opportunity to be leading on this front on behalf of not only our residents, but the entire Bay Area.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Dr. Garcia.
Okay, that being said, I believe there's all the questions we have. Vice President, would you like to, since you pulled the item, would you like to make a motion to refer this item 15 for final consideration approval on Thursday?
Motion to approve, yes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All right, let's take a vote.
That was the motion by Supervisor or Vice President Arenas, second by Supervisor Jung. Supervisor Abacoga?
Aye.
Supervisor Jung?
Yes.
Supervisor Ellenberg?
Yes.
Vice President Arenas?
Yes.
And President Lee?
Aye as well.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay, I believe the next item is 26, pulled by me. And right off the bat, I'm just going to ask, since I pulled the item, there's a couple of requests. I'm just make a motion to refer this item for final consideration and approval for Thursday as well with the following requests. One is relating to the R5 number 16, relating to the prioritization of hospital capital improvement projects, requesting to have an ongoing semi-annual report at HXC starting in November on the hospital capital improvement projects and legally mandated seismic work required by 2030. That works, Paul?
Yes, Supervisor Lee, it does.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.
And then the second request is on R5 17 relating to transition plan for family residency program moving to O'Connor. Also following, asking for follow-up reports at the December HXC, and if we can make even maybe semi-annual as well, and also the June HXC following meeting as well, if that's okay.
Yes, President Lee.
Great, thank you. And that's my motion. Anybody have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Supervisor Abekoga. No further comments? I'll let the clerk get back, and we could take a vote.
Thank you. On motion of Supervisor Lee, seconded by Supervisor Abekoga. Supervisor Abekoga.
Aye.
Supervisor Jung.
Yes.
Supervisor Ellenberg.
Yes.
Vice President Arenas.
Yes.
President Lee.
Aye as well.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. I believe next item I have is item 28. Am I correct? Actually, it's 20 and 29, I believe, and both we will hear and was pulled by Vice President Arenas recommendations for the Behavior Health Services Department.
And I don't know if you want to hear 20 and 29 together, I assume so, but.
Sure, yeah, that's what I'm proposing, if that's okay, Vice President?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please. And do you want to start the questioning first, or you want the staff to speak first? Your choice. Okay, all right. Go ahead, Sherry. Dr. Terrell, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, President Lee, members of the Board of Supervisors, Sherry Terrell, Director with our Behavioral Health Services Department. I'm joined here by Caitlin Liu, our Chief Financial Officer, and Megan Wheelahan, our Deputy Director, and we're open to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anything else in your James?
No.
Okay, good. All right, questions?
Wonderful.
Go ahead, Vice President.
Thank you. So I understand that we have to make reductions overall, and it is, you know, of course, nobody's favorite thing to do, but reductions need to happen. We have been talking about making sure that, or at least I have, I know for a number of years during the budget season, one, to have the budget be more program-based so it could be more transparent in terms of exactly where we are cutting, where we are increasing, how we are moving our budget. But until that happens, we wait for these conversations to happen during the budget season. So one of the the reason I pulled this item, I think you already know, is that I'm very concerned about the transition with our behavioral health services and the support systems that you have been building around the school systems through School Link services, and the reduction, I think about $8.5 or so million that will be reduced from the overall program, which means that there'll be less available services for our kiddos. And I'm wondering, I know that you have mentioned that there is some transition of services and that some providers have all year-round services so that nobody gets lost during the summer or vacation periods. What has been the transition for these schools throughout all of our county?
Thank you for the question, Supervisor. Maybe just to provide a bit of context, the Behavioral Health Services Department has been, for the past several years, really building a foundation of services and supports in schools for students across the county. This dates back to School Link services, where we were investing significantly in supports of School Link services coordinators, in addition to behavioral health services that could be provided in the schools. Following implementation of schooling services, we had significant opportunity to build wellness centers across the county. And the board has been very supportive in investing those dollars and ensuring that schools and districts across the entire county have been able to build wellness centers. So slowly but surely over the years, we've been really trying to build that foundation. In addition, alongside that implementation has been what is referred to as a Children Youth Behavioral Health Initiative, which was a multi-year initiative intended to bring services and supports to children across all school districts across the state, irrespective of insurance. And there's an initiative referred to as the fee schedule, which allows school districts to implement behavioral health services either on their own or in partnership with entities to be able to ensure that those services are made available to students irrespective of insurance. So we've referred to that in multiple reports as the fee schedule, and we believe that's a really important foundation because it ensures access to students across the county and across the state, really, to behavioral health services. As you're aware, in this budget climate, we've had to make some difficult decisions, but we've also recognized the upside and the opportunity that some of these state initiatives have provided to the county. So thinking about the fee schedule, thinking about the foundation of the wellness centers, we've been really working to bring early intervention or early supports to students across the county. In this budget year, we've retained a lot of the services that we have been providing. We are planning to leverage the opportunities with the fee schedule, and we have been working with school districts, and namely our providers who provide those services across the county, to be able to think thoughtfully about the transitions that are coming about as part of the budget. So we've been working closely with them throughout the past couple of years, really, in setting the course for how we were planning to move forward. One, again, leveraging the fee schedule. Two, really expanding the opportunities with wellness centers, because it's really important to all of us across the county, and namely the board, who has been extremely supportive of youth behavioral health services over the years, to ensure that students retain access to those important services.
Thank you so much for the context, Sherry. And I think that congratulations on all of what that has been able to be achieved throughout the years. I think the wellness centers came about because of the pandemic. We recognized that schools were a hub for community and obviously for the youth. And that is a very accessible way for children to receive services. And so we probably all have visited wellness centers throughout our districts and just been amazed. It probably allows for our kids to have a safe place to be. They're not going to be protected from everything, but at the very least, they have a place, right, that they can step into. And so, congratulations. Those wellness centers are just amazing. But along with those wellness centers, you also have the coordinator, right, the SLS coordinator, and through the coordinator, you have the 3 tiers in terms of services, right? One for just the general population, outreach, just general information. Second is shorter termed, right? Short-termed, I think you said earlier, 10 sessions or less, to short-term therapeutic services. And then tier 3 is for the longer term or more intense services that are required, right? And so out of those 3 tiers, I'm not so concerned about the first tier, and I think you did right in terms of, I think most people are very aware of behavioral health, those needs. We've come a long way since the pandemic, and from really taking away behavioral health isn't it isn't a bad word anymore. It is, people are embracing their mental health in a way that I think shows through our youth. But there still is an opportunity for us to do some shorter term, right? Some short term, just so that those kiddos who might be facing something that might be in transition of their development, or just whatever they're facing in their lives, they can have somebody to help stabilize them. So that I think is really needed, as we know a lot of the adults in their lives are probably working full time, or there's just less folks in their lives, as we have seen the exodus of families from our county, and a lot of folks who might have had a lot of family members around in that network that creates stability for children and youth may not be present as much as it was before. And so I think that middle is really important, right? The third level we will always provide, because we understand that severity or the severe needs need to be, we need to be responsive for. And so what my concern is about what we know about children and youth currently. One is that most abuse or most activity that happens through our child welfare system is at the beginning, at the end of school year, right? And this transition is happening at the end of a school year. And then in a couple of months, 2 months, the beginning of the school year will happen, where those are time periods where it's very, where kids will see a lot more reports, either because they've been away from school and from a trusted adult, or because whatever reasons this happens, but we understand it that this is a pattern. And so the other piece, the reason that I'm pointing this out is because what I would like to see is that there would be a transition of 6 months so that we can ensure that all of the school districts, not just the well-resourced, and there's nothing wrong with being very well-resourced. It's wonderful that they are. I'm just imagining that those folks who are better resourced will be more able to have a Medi-Cal reimbursement, the fee-based schedule that you talked about. They're going to be more apt to doing that. And I'm grateful that the kids in those school districts will benefit. But not every school district will have the same capacity. And so my question to you previously was, what is that capacity of each of those school districts so that we can then really take our hands off the steering wheel? As you've been saying, you've been setting this up so that you can walk away or step away from this. And I think, yes, it's wonderful to actually do that, although the schools are not set up to do behavioral health, that's not their bread and butter, right? And so what I fear is that they're going to default back to what they do best, which is education. And they will soon forget, or not be able to, or just have the same reductions that we are experiencing here. And so the first things that go are the last things that you added, right? Which is going to be behavioral health. So what I'm looking for is a transition plan so that we can ensure that all of the work that you've been doing for the last couple of years isn't lost because we don't know what we left in terms of structure for those school districts. And it may not be our responsibility, but it is our responsibility for those children and youth that we once were there, and now we are going to be gone from the lives of those children and those youth, except for the tier 3, which is the more intense. So that is my concern. This is one of the things that I've been, I think, wrestling with, and I think for me, I'd love to see us conclude this piece of stabilizing mental health services, or integrating mental health services into the school districts in a way that we can walk away and say, we embedded, we made sure they had capacity, we made sure that there was an ability for kids to continue to benefit from what we'd laid down. And so at this point, I don't know that I'm comfortable doing that. And I wonder if, and this is to you, James, that we can take a look at how can we ensure that a 6-month or whatever month kind of transition could be done so that we ensure that all the work that has been done in the last couple of years isn't lost.
Yes, Supervisor, I think what we can do is we can talk with the department and see kind of what best options there are for kind of titrating down, so to speak, or in essence, kind of phasing in the transition over the next several months. It is a pretty significant budgetary item, and so we do have to kind of take a look at that carefully. I think there's a few things that we can do very concretely for sure. One is I think we can definitely augment and report back on the transition with respect to each school district. That I think should happen absolutely, and that could be to HHC, or that could be part of the behavioral health quarterly reports, or both. Second, we can talk with the department about ways in which we can ensure that there's kind of a warm phase down, and look and see what that would also look like from a fiscal standpoint in terms of one-time funding. But those are I don't have a suggestion at the moment regarding the funding piece. That's something that I think we'll need to have a little bit of time to try to think through. It's also something that we might be best positioned to come back with to ensure that we're able to do that. I think there's a shared commitment in making sure that there is no gap in service delivery. I think there's a real opportunity with the fee schedule to actually enhance the overall service delivery that's being provided. School districts have the ability, and many are choosing to do so through the established state authorized providers, which I think is a really positive thing. But your point around the start of the school year, I think, is an important one, because districts are in different places and different shapes. We have, I think it's 33 districts in our county. 2 of them are one school districts. And so, they are in different positions, including in how well positioned they are over the summer to implement things. So I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all. I do think it's something that I know the department's been in ongoing communication with each district, but it is something that's district-specific for sure, and not generic across the 33 districts in the county.
Right. I know that I got feedback from one of my school districts in my respective area, and they mentioned that they had, I believe 3 deaths this year in their school, and so they actually were grateful for behavioral health and the support that they've got. I don't know. I think they're fearing what, in terms of what they will do once that support system is gone. And so I know for various different reasons up and down this dais, there'll be different pressures and stressors on our kids. Some of it are academic, some of them are more economic, and it doesn't really matter. Stress is stress on a child or a youth, and it limits in terms of the kinds of the thinking ability, and then the options that kids can take because they don't have somebody to talk to in the same way that they might have before. And so I just want to make sure that I emphasize that we need to figure out the capacity for those school districts. I want to focus on some of them that have the higher number of reportings of child abuse that come into our system, because I think that's really important. But I also think that we need to take a look at those schools that have had suicides or near fatality suicides or attempted suicides, because I think that also is really important to review and to consider. I know in my district we have Evergreen School District, and I know that there's a number of suicides that happen, and for many different reasons. Anyways, thank you for the response. I'm hoping that we can come back and figure out something that could work for everyone.
Thank you. Yes, Supervisor Young.
Thank you. I wanted to ask about the transition plan for our patients at the Alexian Clinic. I know that was brought up during budget workshops as well, and again here today at budget hearings.
Sure, yeah, so we're talking about the Alexian CFCS clinic, which is a youth SUTS clinic. So we are retaining 3 clinicians who work at that clinic currently. We've been working on a plan with our existing network of mental health and substance use treatment clinics to transition those clinicians so that they can both continue to support the schools that they support in San Jose and South County and continue to see youth in a more integrated mental health and substance use treatment setting. So we have transition plans for all of those youth. They're being assessed for their current level of need to make sure that they're at the right level of care, and will either follow their clinician, or if their clinician is not staying with us, such as the intern I think that spoke earlier, they would be transitioned to one of the remaining staff members.
Right, so the worst case scenario that was posited today during public comment was that worst case scenario, that our patients would not have a place to go to, a place to land, or being abandoned. That is not a scenario that we expect to
That's
see.
not happening right now. I can understand, the concern of people currently working in that clinic and wanting to make sure that all of the clients are picked up and held throughout this process, but that is the intention. Right now, we have, I think it's 8 children, youth that are being seen at the Alexian CFCS clinic, and we have transition plans for all of them.
Okay, thank you. And then thank you for that response. And I think my office, I would like to be apprised of how that transition is going. I know that our patients served at the Alexian clinic is from all over the county, but this is a clinic that is is in my district and is being impacted. And I just want to make sure that whatever services was there is still being provided in the best way possible. And it doesn't have to necessarily remain in the district, but just has to be somewhere. And at least, I'm expecting for this transition to provide better services.
Yeah, we're hoping to expand actually the number of youth who have access to substance use treatment services, both through contractors and in our county clinics. And I'd be happy to apprise you as that transition is happening.
Thank you, Megan. And I just wanted to ask more about the state fee payer schedule that we're heading towards. I know that's been in the works for a number of years. And so as this expands access for every child, right? So it's because right now we're providing care for our Medi-Cal children. How are we gonna, how is the state or us, or how are we making private insurance companies pay?
The state does it for us. So they've gotten all of the commercial insurers to enter into this sort of collaborative agreement where they get billed a set amount through the fee schedule. Those claims go to DHCS, and then DHCS kind of doles out the responsibility so that we as a county or the school districts themselves aren't having to do that to get the reimbursement for the services to commercially insured youth.
I want to say one thing that's really exciting about that. It is very hard to get commercial payers to actually pay. They make their money on the spread between what they're supposed to pay and what they actually pay. And we spend a lot of resources in our health system trying to collect what we're owed by commercial payers, and that's a complaint you'll hear from every healthcare provider in the entire United States. And all of us have our own stories about insurance. One of the things that I think is really powerful about this state fee schedule is there's a lot of individuals who bounce between types of coverage. And as we see what's happening at the federal level, we're very focused on what's happening to Medi-Cal. But there's terrible things happening to Covered California as well, with the exchange. And there's impacts in terms of how people bounce up and down off coverage between employer coverage, between exchange coverage, between Medi-Cal coverage, et cetera. And this is a way of actually helping provide continuity of care and payment through schools across kind of coverage modalities, so to speak. And that's, I think, something that's going to get a lot worse in the coming few years based on what's happening with the broader insurance market. So I think that's a really good thing. I would personally love to see more of that happening across healthcare more broadly. I mean, this is exactly why people talk about things like single payer, which is your care for your health care and for your behavioral health and otherwise, you shouldn't be affected in your continuity of care between bouncing around with different insurance providers and insurance products and having to fight with claims processing. And there is so much waste, and it is waste at a systemic level in our economy in the management of insurance and claims processing. So much. And it's what sets us apart in a very bad way from basically every other country that has modern healthcare, is that structure that we have around managed care, around insurance and different insurance products. And one of the things we're trying to do as a county organization is actually eliminate some of that when it comes to Medi-Cal, because even Medi-Cal, right, has been so divided in our community among all the different plans. But much more broadly, this is one space in which the state is trying to facilitate that for coverage in school. So that is a very, very positive thing for kids in our community. But candidly, I think it's a very positive example of how we can have a much more efficient delivery and utilization of each dollar. And here's the reality. With the federal government taking so much money out of healthcare, we have to, as a society, make sure we're maximizing every penny of that dollar for the actual provision of care. We can't afford all of the slicing and dicing as it kind of gets whittled away on its way down to actually providing care and care delivery to people who need it. So from a structural perspective, that's a very positive thing.
It's a seismic transition that needs to be done well. If done well, it really also allows us at the ground level not to have to determine who gets services based on what kind of insurance they have. I think, just like you said, James, that all of us probably has a traumatic experience with private commercial insurance plans. I think it's just also as equally traumatic, if not more, for a young person to have to be part of that conversation, determination whether you deserve care or not. Are you on this plan or that plan? No, we can't serve you. So with this transition happening, it needs to be done right. I think that's what we've all agreed here. And I just, this is kind of an open-ended question to our team, to Sherry, to Megan, to Caitlin, if you feel free to join in, that are we ready for this transition? And are our schools ready? Are our community clinics ready? Are our providers ready? Oh, and I should add too, just to make it even more difficult, for this open-ended question to be even more broadly open. Are we ready, and what do we have in place to course correct as challenges arise from this transition? As all major transitions will have challenges in implementation.
Yes, as we've been sharing, Supervisor, we've been working very closely with the districts around this transition. This has been in the works for a few years. I would say the majority of the districts that have or will implement the fee schedule are ready to do so. They've developed agreements with providers or have elected to do it themselves. Of course, there are a couple of school districts that we're still staying close to and ensuring that they're able to do that. But I will say, per James's comment, we really do need to take advantage of this opportunity here. I'll think back to, overseeing kids' services for many years, and particularly school-based services where, there was a lot of infighting about who serves, what type of insurance, and, the county serves Medicaid. An example of a district paying a grant fund to a CCP who then serves a particular type of insurance. And for many years, there's just been going round and round in terms of, how do we serve kids? How do we bill insurance? And I think the fee schedule really takes all of that away and creates an opportunity for a child, irrespective of insurance, to get services. So I think this is a really awesome path. I'll say I've had skepticism over the years about different state implementations. They don't always necessarily go as smoothly as we would like. But I will say the CYBHI initiative is one that has, they've put a lot of attention to ensuring that multiple stakeholder voices is included, school districts are included, providers are included, and then the recipients of care, whether it be children or families, their voice has been included. And I think, you know, to the county executive's point, this is a real inflection point, and we do have to take advantage of this opportunity going forward. I'll invite Megan or Caitlin to add anything if they have additional comments.
Just to say also, the proposal does represent a bit of a transition in and of itself. For the schools that right now don't have the Tier 3, the school-based outpatient services, we are adding school-based outpatient services so that there's not sort of any school district left out in the cold with no SBA, no SBOP. There have been some transitions of schools, as you're aware in the news, some school closures that where students will be received at other schools, but those schools will have school-based outpatient. And because of the CalAIM No Wrong Door initiative, students who may even not be on their face seriously mentally ill or seriously emotionally disturbed can initially get referred into services, get assessed, and then get referred out and receive services while that process is going on. So there truly is intended to be kind of a safety net in place. We also took some of the outreach dollars that previously had been in SBA and put them into school-based outpatient so that the providers in the that will remain in the schools can continue to do outreach and engagement work to make sure that youth who maybe aren't just showing up and saying, I need services, can get some outreach and engagement before they're ready to really sit down and engage in treatment.
I really appreciate that context. Thank you, Megan. Sorry, Caitlin, did you wanted to add anything? You don't have to. Please don't feel pressured.
I'm good. I think they covered it all. Thank you.
And that's really helpful context to understand how thoughtful this process has been. Now, for Sherry, you talked about schools. There are certain school districts that are still not quite ready, and they're, you know, because this is a big deal. And you're saying that we're staying really closely with them. Can you lean more into what that means, staying closely with them? In addition to what Megan has already shared.
Sure. We regularly meet with our school district superintendents and other staff that are implementing schooling services, you know, create opportunities to dialogue about their level of readiness to implement the fee schedule. By and large, the majority of districts are, in fact, either in process or currently implementing. So, as I mentioned, we will continue to stay close, meeting regularly with them. You know, providing support where needed if they have a question or a concern about implementation. But essentially, the majority of the school districts, I believe, do, in fact, see the upside of this opportunity and have, you know, put implementation plans in place.
And I want to make sure I understand this. I'm just trying to put the pieces together here that, Megan, the investments that you just talked about in terms of having school-based outpatient services, is that being matched with schools that are not quite ready yet for this transition? Is that how it's working? Or is it broader than that?
I might phone a friend for that answer because I don't know each school district off the top of my head, but one of our excellent leaders in this space, Catherine Aspiras, is here and can help us understand whether the 3 schools that are still surveying options, what level of services they have. Thanks, Catherine.
Hi, good afternoon, supervisors. I'm Catherine Aspiras, Division Director over School-Based Services with Behavioral Health. We've recently received updates from 3 of the school districts, or one of the school districts. So one school district, San Jose Unified, is actually implementing the fee schedule with a third-party provider, a statewide affiliate. They're also having discussions with other providers to add more services onto their MOUs with providers. The other school district, Allen Rock Union, they have also implemented the fee schedule with a statewide provider, and they will be starting their services in the fall. Then the 2 other school districts that we will follow up with closely in the beginning of the school year, or when they return from summer vacation, we'll meet with them to check in the status and provide some support if they need help with or have any questions regarding those 2 school districts. Yes, so sorry. The school districts that, those two school districts that we are still following up on, they do have school-based outpatient. One of the school districts is Luther Burbank School District, and it is a one-school school district, and they do have school-based outpatient plus a wellness center. The other school district is Evergreen, and they do have school-based outpatient in 4 of their schools that will be there, and then they do also have wellness centers as well.
Thank you. Those are my questions, President.
Sure. Vice President, your follow-up?
Thank you. I served as a school board member in Evergreen, and also when I first started here, I was really disappointed that Evergreen hadn't signed on to their contract so that they could receive a schooling services coordinator, and it took almost a whole year for them to understand that they needed to sign this contract in order to receive this benefit and have this coordinator come on campus. And it wasn't because they're not a sophisticated district. For whatever reason, they just didn't get to it, right? And so they are obviously in my district, and there's many like them, right? They're just kind of in the middle. They have very high-end schools, and then they have very needier schools. And this is where my concern is that the school districts, maybe all 30 or 31, have signed on to either have an embedded third party, or they themselves are doing it, or however they're going to reimburse or get reimbursed. That still doesn't mean that they have the capacity, or that they have they can operationalize the function, right? It means that maybe they just have it signed and agreed and think, this is great, we're going to do this moving forward, we believe in this, this will allow for, kids with private insurance to receive benefits just as much as Medi-Cal students or students with Medi-Cal. And my concern is not just the signing of an agreement, it's actually the operationalizing of the system, so that we can make sure that when we walk away from this segment of the service, that they actually have the capacity, that they have not just the ability to do that because they've signed on to a contract, but that they have the capacity to do this. And at this point, I don't know what that capacity is. I previously asked the question to you, and I don't know if you've actually been able to learn that. What is the capacity for the school districts? I know that you said there's 1 or 2 maybe that haven't signed on, but what is the capacity of to actually operationalize this, tier 2, or is it SBEI? There's so many acronyms. So I don't know what it is. And so this is the reason why I'm asking for a transition, just to make sure that we are able to do this, and that everybody can actually not just sign something, but operationalize something. So that is my, I don't know if I have to make a motion at this point.
Yeah, actually, we will have to make a motion, but I do have a few questions.
Oh,
We
sure.
can
I'm so
incorporate
sorry,
everything,
President.
I'll just go give my
Yes,
comments.
of course.
3 items I'll try to get through. I think most items has been dealt with, but I just want to reiterate one issue. Regarding the Alexian mentioning of the clinicians and interns being moved to the Las Plumas Sunnyvale Behavior Clinic, and also the Behavioral Health Pavilion on the Gender Health Center. I just need to get the facts straight, is that the commenter mentioned that those locations have behavioral health but not substance use treatment licenses or right away, and if that would cause a problem. So I just want to see if there's any problem in terms of licensure and how these services can be ensured to be continued.
Yes, in short, the services can be continued. It's a little bit technical in terms of how you bill for them and what certification they have. The school sites where the clinicians work are certified in themselves, so substance use treatment, what they call DMC ODS billing, can happen there. There's obviously a certification at the current CFCS, but we can transport is the wrong verb, but we can move that to another clinic site through an administrative process. And there also is an existing certification over at the Sunnyvale Youth Clinic. And simply because a clinic isn't certified for DMC ODS doesn't mean we can't serve youth there. We could serve them under mental health as sort of co-occurring, which is typically the case with our youth. So we do not expect that certification to have any impact on services, although it is kind of an administrative process we will need to work through.
Okay, so that's my concern, is making sure that the service is going to be deliverable, right, number one. And two is, there's the concern, of course, when you move people around from locations where they get the services, or even especially changing the clinician or the service provider, relationships being delivered. And so there's certainly a concern, and that's been mentioned, about this so-called abandonment issue. So how do we ensure that all current clients and youths like Alexian being closed are not being abandoned? In other words, how do we actually track and provide the follow-up when these youths actually don't show up to the new location, new clinician, after this transition? And B is, can this information be provided to the board, obviously removing PII, understand privacy issues, to show us that we know that we are tracking them carefully, that no one is actually left behind?
I'd be happy to provide you updates on the transition. We're tracking it right now along with all the other clinic transitions that we are expecting to do via spreadsheet, and sort of a large team of clinicians from across our department, looking to make sure everyone has an assessment, we have a plan for them. As I said, it's maybe I gave the wrong number. It's 18 that are off, sort of clinic-based, that are not within the schools. 8 of those are already being seen at Sunnyvale, so they can continue there. And then 2 will transition to the new clinic site, which is nearby to where they are currently. And we are using kind of a team of peers and RCs. We have some of the delayed, deleted positions that will follow up if we notice that clients at any level of care, but most especially our youth SUTS clients, are not following up with their appointments to figure out what happened and try to engage them.
Is this something we could add to the report to HXC?
Sure.
Yeah, this is doable. Okay, yeah. And since I just saw that, if you could give us a report. Again, at the end of the day, I'm not trying to micromanage your work. I just want to make sure folks are not falling through the cracks. That's all. Okay, so that's one. Second item I do have a question on is regarding a lot of the issues on schooling services has been asked, and I just want to say thank you for explaining all that. One item that seems odd to one of my member that work with us and has a lot of experience with SLS is the questioning of the methodology as to how those dollar amounts are being allocated to each school district. And obviously, one, equity is being a very important part of our DNA in this county to make sure that the funding is given to those needs. I just want to understand, because right now the funding of each schools are very different. Some are like 4 or 5 times. So is there a way you could provide us like an off agenda to explain the methodology, and how, or if there's any way we could also improve on the criteria in the future to make sure the funding is appropriate?
Thanks for the question, Supervisor. Yeah, our team did really come up with a very thoughtful equity analysis to apply evenly across the board to all school districts to come up with the funding amount. We'd be happy to explain that further, or I do have Catherine here that she and our Director Zelia came up with that, if you wanted to hear more about it now.
No, I mean, sure. I think I don't want you to give more work to you, but if you put an off agenda, something in the record, I think would be useful for everybody's future as well to look at. But I think this is important because apparently many in the system felt that there was some, they don't understand how this allocation works. So having that black and white, it'll be easier to explain to folks in the system. Great. All right. And then the third item is dealing with the issue of the The couple of folks, well, first of all, on the community outreach and suicide prevention, there were initially a deletion of about 4 individuals, James. And first of all, I want to say thank you for able to restore 2 of those positions. That was extremely important. What I am still concerned about is the fact that when the work of suicide prevention, any type of reduction of service, in this case, my understanding is potentially relate to life and death. You know, a lot of things we deal with here is dollars and cents is one thing, but if the reduction of service relating to suicide prevention, that is going to probably lead to more deaths so I'm just so concerned about that. If you could help me explain to let me know that by this budget change, how we can make sure that even though these positions may not be able to be restored, that the actual service to the suicide prevention is not going to be reduced.
Sure. We've taken a really careful look at this. This was definitely an area that came up in several conversations. Just to remind the board, this is a space where the state made a significant funding change and has shifted the funding for the program and the service from behavioral health and is actually withholding from counties a portion of the funding and allocating it to the State Department of Public Health, because in the state's judgment through Prop 1, the state's decided that it's more effective to implement suicide prevention on a statewide basis through the California Department of Public Health. Now, as I've said before, and will reiterate now, for a county like ours, we don't agree with that philosophical approach, and we have formally asked the state to pass that funding back to us. I don't think they're going to, but we've asked the state to do so, and we'll continue to advocate that the state do so because the California Department of Public Health certainly could choose to do so. That being said, because of that realignment, the program is moving from behavioral health to public health, which is consistent with that state direction. What we've done in looking at the specific positions is we've restored those positions that actually are critical to the service delivery. There's a couple positions that are more focused on the data and the data analytics, and in looking at that, we believe there's sufficient coverage from public health's existing data analytics team, and so those are the 2 additional positions. I want to note something else that's really important. It's a really hard thing when we're having these conversations at the board level or even county executive level, which is we have to look at these things from a position perspective and not an individual person. We don't know, candidly, who's going to end up in what chair through bumping processes that are dictated by formulas and labor contracts. So I just want to name that very explicitly, which is there's a lot of concern, I think, that's been expressed around the specific individuals who form the team. And we can provide no assurance that the specific individuals will remain in that specific chair, because who ends up in what specific chair, for example, in a program manager position or a management analyst position, is largely going to end up determined by what's happening with a particular definition of seniority and with all the other adjustments happening, given the volume of position impacts in behavioral health. So I just wanted to distinguish those things, but when we look at the positions, we believe that with the revised recommendation, we are providing, it's an augmentation of general fund. It's one of the only ongoing general fund revised recommendations that the board sees in front of it, because we did look very carefully at each position, and so our recommendation is those 2, but not the other positions that are really more focused on the data.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to say thank you for doing that augmentation in general fund, because this is clearly outside our budget. This is one of those things, but it's clearly important, as we have heard from the public comments in person and writing about the importance of suicide prevention. We have had dozens of speakers and letters and whatnot, and I certainly am fully agree on that issue. So completely agree on the restoration of those two positions during general fund. That's great. My bottom line really question is the level of service.
Right.
Back down to it, right? Sometimes it's not a matter of people, whether you could use technology, use AI, whatever it is that you will be able to use to make sure that we do not reduce the number of hours, right, for that for those type of work, and to making sure that the service at least maintained as prior to this change.
That is our assessment, because we will be able to utilize public health's EPI team and data to support that work, which is some of the work that those two specific positions were doing, given that behavioral health doesn't have that type of a team. It's actually probably one of the reasons why, from a bigger picture perspective, there actually is good alignment in moving this particular program to public health.
For public health. Since on public health, I'm going to ask the team, is this something you could also get a report back to HHS on this change? And
I think that's a report that should probably come from public health, but yes, we can do that.
Yeah, we do that, yeah. So I think to make sure that the level of service is going to be maintained or improved due to whatever other changes you're making. Okay. And those are the items I have. So I would like to suggest maybe just making a motion to move this to a Thursday report, incorporating a lot of our comments today and requests, if that's okay.
So moved.
So moved and seconded. Okay.
Sorry, I think we need to be a little bit more specific about what is in that motion there.
Okay, sure. I'll try to remember at least what I put in now.
28 and 29 is.
Yes, right. For item 28, 29, to move those items for approval to our Thursday meeting for the final approval, including the report back regarding the community outreach, special neutralizer prevention, transition issues, also the Alexian closure issue of a report back on those, the tracking those to be provided at HXS meetings, along with the off-agenda report on the methodology on determining the allocation for the school district on SLS.
As well as the public health report back.
Public health report,
Yeah.
exactly, right, thank you. So those are mine. Anything else?
That included mine, right? Your transition segment, was that alluding to the transition for the behavioral
Yeah,
health?
assessment of capacity by
Okay,
district
okay,
and
perfect.
transition
Thank
planning
you,
for the
thank you,
district.
Thank you.
Correct.
Yes. And then before we vote, I know that we just finished talking about, and thank you for bringing up the suicide prevention piece. I know that it's moving statewide, and so we are adjusting to that and realigning here. I just wanted to ensure that, if I could just understand this a little bit better, I've already had conversations with Dr. Redmond and Rhonda over in the audience, and so I know that there's going to be a study that's going to be done to create a baseline and also to learn from our community in terms of the needs, and I think that's going to be really helpful. I just also want to make sure that as we move forward, that we don't lose this piece with the schooling services, because we have quite a bit of our youth that are at risk, and so if there's a possibility for integration, continued integration, even though there's going to be a transition, a formal transition of suicide prevention to public health, that there still be some level of integration into with both of these departments, because you have a captive audience through our schooling services, right? And so you don't have to duplicate outreach, you don't have to create, just duplicative efforts. I just think that there's already a built-in audience here, and connection and partnership, not just an audience, but a partnership that you created over the years that I think the public health will greatly benefit from once the study is done and they're well into their programming. So I see you nodding your heads. I'm going to assume that that's an agreement. and I see you nodding your heads. I just would love to see how cross-departmental efforts will look like. And I think this is a really good opportunity for us to take advantage of all the work that you've already done and laid down, and so that public health, when they pick it back up, they'll just move with it. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. Thank you.
I heard a motion. I'm not sure I heard a second. Second, okay, got it.
Yes. Okay.
And yeah, the answer to the nodding heads is yes.
Usually that's what nodding head means, I think, but okay, thank you.
But just for the transcript.
All right, for the transcript, very good. Yes, let's go take a vote.
All right. A motion of President Lee, seconded by Supervisor Arenas. Supervisor Avacoga.
Aye.
Supervisor Young.
Yes.
Supervisor Ellenberg.
Yes.
Vice President Arenas.
Yes.
President Lee.
Aye as well.
Motion carries 5-0.
Great, thank you. The next item I have is item 31, which is regarding the budget for the Valley Health Plan. I do have I pulled this for a couple of brief questions and requests. First is, we heard that we are supposed to get a report from the administration this fall for the reimagination of the PCAP. Just wanted to check to see, are we still on track, James?
Yes, so that's something that that we'll be working on, coming up with some brainstorming and ideas, and we'll be bringing to the board in the fall. It's really something that, although VHP administers the program, this is actually primarily a conversation that's being led by SCVH and by Paul Lorenz.
Yes.
So it's going to be a complicated challenge because there's a bunch of state-related things happening at the same time.
Right.
So for example, just to name one specific thing that's happening at the state level, there's a proposal in the legislative budget. We'll see what happens again with the conversations with the governor. But there's a proposal to put some funding on so-called emergency-only indigent care. We don't know what that means. I'm concerned about what that means. I'm worried that what that means is that counties across California will be actually providing very, very narrow emergency-related care. That's not consistent with this county's values, mission, approach to healthcare delivery, and it's definitely not consistent with how to actually deliver healthcare to people. But I name that because one of the things that we have to figure out with whatever we do is, given the fact that we don't really have any money, is how do we leverage what funding there is to cobble together some form of coverage. It's not going to be full-fledged insurance, but some form of coverage with our community clinic partners and within SCVH for continued access to preventative and primary care. So that's the challenge. I think we're pretty clear-eyed about the challenge. The solution is going to be complicated to assemble. So that's a long way of saying, yes, we're going to be working on it, but we're definitely not ready with any ideas yet, but we're very clear-eyed about the problem.
Okay, so we're going to have something coming back around, what, August, September, you think?
Certainly not August, a little later in the fall. I think we have more than enough stuff coming back in August right now.
Okay, all right. And then the other question is, with the comments from many of the patients talking about how these healthcare service changes has been highlighted by the folks of moving to VHP, forcing the patients to getting new doctors or doctors without the proper language access. Is there a way we could get a report back to us in HXC, say by August, to see how we're able to accommodate this and how we're trying to fix those of changes that is not desired by the patients, and how we can alleviate these changes, these pain?
I'm not quite sure I know what exact piece of things you're referencing regarding VHP, but maybe.
Doc, is that working yet? Try it. gotta be some button works. Yeah, okay, the other button works. There you
This
go.
one's work.
Yes.
Good afternoon,
Hi.
Supervisors. Victoria Fan, Acting CEO for Valley Health Plan.
Yes.
With regard to that, technically, all of the patients who are assigned to Valley Health Plan, they do have a choice to select the primary care provider, and that process happens throughout the month. And if and when the members select their new primary care provider, that will be effective on the following month.
Correct.
So if we want to see who are the patients that changing or wanted to change their primary care provider, we definitely can run a report to identify the members and the new provider, the new primary care provider that the members select.
Sure, I mean, certainly, we don't want to get report on PII information that we're not entitled to. I'm not looking for that, but I'm just trying to find out these complaints we heard today from many of the speakers, many of which I believe were Vietnamese speaking, are complaining the fact that they are not able to find doctors that speak this language, literally, right? And I think that's a very serious concern if we are not able to provide that just because of the fact that they are switching from one health plan to another. And that's something that we make them do.
Yeah, and part of the requirements under the managed care health plan, we as a health plan require to offer the primary care or the physicians in the member language and within the geographic area of the members.
Right.
So that definitely is our priority, and we can definitely assist any of our members who has challenges to navigate through the care. We can definitely has a priority, and we can definitely assist the members if and when there is any concern that they cannot navigate through the system or selecting the primary care provider or the provider of their own languages or within the geographic distance nearby their residency.
Okay. I just want to have a bit of an oversight on this issue. If that's possible, bring it back to us in August on HXC to let us know how this process is moving. I'm just basically hoping that these type of gaps takes a little time to solve, but it's not because of the fact that we have a lack of language-capable physicians in our system. I mean, certainly we have a lot of Vietnamese population in our county, and I just want to make sure that our system has the necessary nurses and physicians and in order to serve this community more directly. Especially, what I hate to hear is when they are happy with the prior physicians and service, and when you shift, always changes is never easy. But I want to make sure that they don't fall through the gap. That's what I'm looking for. Okay. All right, and with that, I'm just going to make a motion to incorporate that point I just mentioned to report back to HXC to have the oversight on the VHP on this transition. And if it's okay to my colleague, give a second, we'll just take a vote. Moving this item 31 to Thursday as well. Okay, got a motion that got seconded. No further comments, please vote.
All right, on motion of President Lee, seconded by Vice President Arenas, Supervisor Abagoga.
Aye.
Supervisor Young.
Yes.
Supervisor Ellenberg.
Yes.
Vice President Arenas.
Yes.
President Lee.
Aye as well.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Is this the very last item today? Yes, I see a lot of nods. That means yes, usually, right? So we'll now recess to our next meeting, which is tomorrow, Tuesday, June 16th at 1:30 p.m., where we'll continue the budget hearing. Thanks very much for our OBA staff and our security staff and the community that came to speak on this section on the budget. And time is 4:57, meeting adjourned.